Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell, and welcome back to another Enclave actual play. We have two fantastic returning players and one fantastic new player. It is his first ever mission, and we are delighted to have him here. Let us begin with some player introductions. Alexander, take it away.
Hi everyone. My name is Alexander. This is my first time playing Enclave. I'm very, very excited, but I am here primarily in part because me and my father Jim, one of the other players here, met Robbie through running a YouTube channel called The Old Warlock. Um, we've been interacting with Robbie for a long time now. He helped us out a lot with one of our Kickstarters that we did recently. We've been trying to learn from him about his Kickstarter with Enclave and kind of his game development process. But I'm very excited to get started today. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you for having me, Robbie. Thank you for having me, everybody else. It should be a fun day.
Thanks very much. And Jallorn.
Hi. I don't know why I decided to adjust myself just as my introduction was happening. I go by Jallorn. I'm also totally cool with you guys calling me by my actual, real world name, Elliot. I met Robbie through his Age of Empires channel first, actually, where more or less on a whim, I just decided to respond to basically every build he was doing at the time. Mm-hmm. If you like Age of Empires, I recommend that channel. It's a fun time. I'm a bit between projects myself, but I've been part of the Discord server for Enclave for a little while now, and it has just completely replaced D&D for me, pretty much.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, Jallorn. And lastly, Jim.
Hi, guys. My name is Jim, and Alexander kind of stole my thunder for being able to say anything about who we are and why we're here. But this is my fourth game, I believe, fourth or fifth game of Enclave, which I've come to really love. Looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting.
Marvelous. Thank you very much. And now, brief introductions of your characters in that same order, if you please. Alexander, fire away.
Okay, so just very quickly, I went with one of the more simple builds, it sounds like, just to get myself introduced here, but I'm going to be running a Thane named Ajax. And since you mentioned Age of Empires, got the inspiration from Age of Mythology, the character there, because I've been playing that.
Hit them, my friends. Get some prostagmas up in there.
Absolutely. Do you want me to run through kind of the stats and all that as well?
Whichever ones you think are most noteworthy.
Sure, I'll just do my abilities and gear. My abilities are going to be 2 arms, shield wall, and gear thinks, if I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. And then my gear is going to be the heavy panoply, the bastard sword, the mantle, and the banner. So,
lovely.
Ready to go.
Excellent. And Jallorn.
So I will be playing Foolish Pigeon, who is a Jester Bogatir. Jester being the skin, Bogatir being the class. It is not a core class. It is a class created by
Tomash.
Tomash, thank you. It's created by Tomash of our wonderful Discord community. Basically, the Bogatir is a Slavic folk hero, more lower class, but also knightly at the same time, compared to the more Western sort of knight, who is a nobleman. In this case, Foolish Pigeon is skinned as a jester, and so his primary weapon is just a big old clobbering hammer. Think Harley Quinn.
Yeah, the Bogatir is going to be one of the weirder parts of this actual play, given that it is not a class in the main book. So because of that, Jallorn, I might be asking you time and again to summarize certain abilities and things just to get people on the same page.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And lastly,
I love listening to my voice.
I will be bringing a character by the name of Sloan. Sloan is a gunslinger. I'm not going to give a lot of background to him. The only thing I will say is that he has managed to bump his skill up to a 4+.
Yep.
So he's got a little bit of handiness as far as picking targets and either eliminating them or making them do what he wants them to do. So yeah, on that, I think I'm good to go.
Marvelous. Last thing from you guys before I go generate is focus words. Any word or short phrase. I'm asking for one apiece. Let's go in reverse order. Jim, Jallorn, and Alexander.
Well, in keeping with the spirit of of the current season, I would like to go with the word eerie.
Eerie. Lovely. Jallorn.
I'm gonna go with what I came up with before. I hope you haven't had too many thoughts about it before now, but I'm gonna stick with Heart of a Child.
Heart of a Child.
And Jim here kind of stole mine. I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna go with dark.
Okay. Do you want me to have a good time? Great.
I do. Yeah.
In that case, I'm going to go generate. I will be back probably quite soon. And if you guys wouldn't mind going into either more detail about your characters, discussing strategy, discussing side topics, whatever you would like, fill the space. I'll be back soon. Thank you.
So I believe the both of you are not familiar with the Bogatyr. Is that correct?
I want to say that one of my earlier games, someone played one, but I put it this way: it has not stuck in my mind. So maybe it's just in my imagination that it happened.
So the Bogatyr is a bit of a blend between sort of a social and melee and combat class. The core concept is very much a warrior type character. You know, his primary gear includes, you know, a weapon, a helmet, but his his three class abilities are Friend in Need, which is during the mission, if I can do a favor for an NPC, I can pitch that they give me a gift, and then later I can pull the gift out and pitch that it has some magical property, right?
Okay.
Basically, the Bogatyr has the ability to take innocuous gifts and make them much more powerful because.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I actually don't know entirely the original stories that inspired that. I also have Samosek, where I can command a weapon or tool to animate and just sort of do its own thing. So.
Is this one of your weapons or just any weapon?
So, if anything. In the past, I have used it to command a door to open.
Oh, nice.
Or rather, unlock itself. That was fun. And then the last ability I have is Trading Blows, where basically I lock somebody into a fight, except that we don't take damage. So we just keep hitting each other, and it's sort of a lockdown ability.
Okay.
As a character, Pigeon is the only 2-point stat he has is Vitality. Everything else is a bit spread out between Might, Spirit, Skill, and Luck. And so the gist of his playstyle is definitely more heavily social.
Okay.
Cool.
Alexander, you won't be having an established play style yet. I guess we're going to see what happens with that.
Yeah, we're going to see how the cookie crumbles with this one.
I would be curious where you put your customizable stat points.
Yeah, so I was pretty simple and straightforward. I've got 2 each in Might, Resilience, and Spirit. So I'm good at those. Everything else, we'll see what happens.
As far as Sloan's interaction is concerned, I'm going to assume that somehow Pigeon has managed to pick up on this through the Enclave agency or something. He prides himself on being fairly reliable or pretty reliable to the others in his party. Not terribly outgoing in terms of social interaction with people outside of that group. But that gives you some idea of the way that he will be interacting with the group and with whatever we're thrust into.
Okay, this came really quick. I have an idea. Before we dive in, might be kind of obvious from the focus words, but this idea is a little intense. You guys okay with that?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Here is your mission statement. After the mission statement, you will have the opportunity to ask any question you have, though the answer might be no. And the answers to these questions, as well as the entirety of the mission statement, are known in full to your characters. Though the questions don't have to be in character by any means. So, you guys are being sent to a farmhouse. This farmhouse is in a... it's not in a modern setting by any means. You can think of it as like late Renaissance, so to speak. But the technology around here would be functionally medieval, given that it's out in the countryside. You may be aware of all sorts of folklore, boogeymen, and cryptids of the like that need to be placated by a certain type of gift. Well, in this part of the world, there is one such creature that must be placated in such a way, that being Bairnsnag. Bairnsnag is a local boogeyman, so to speak, who is placated by leaving out a child's security blanket when they hit 10 years old. You guys are being sent to the farmhouse of a family who lost their child's blanket. Your one and only goal is to drive away Bairnsnag. And more notably, you should try your utmost to do so without allowing any of the adults in the house to wake up.
Okay.
Bairnsnag takes different guises at times. It has many tricks up its sleeve. And even when initially defeated, do not expect that it will be permanently defeated. The creature is quick and only has a single target in the entire house, that being the child who has just turned 10. It will, of course, not hesitate, however, to attack anything in its way. The adults waking up will be very, very bad. Not because it will result in the adults dying, not by any means, but because they will not be able to see it, nor will they be able to understand that it is there, and as such they will become your enemies as invaders into their home, presumably trying to take their child for yourselves. As such, you need to be very, very careful about not waking them up and having them become a problem as well. It is very unlikely you will be able to permanently destroy or kill the Bairnsnag. Do not try. All you have to do is drive it away. You are going to be porting into the child's room, which is on the second floor of their farmhouse. Second floor here is significant because this is actually quite a wealthy farming family. They have a lot of land, they have a lot of workers underneath them, and they have quite a big property. You do not have to feel any obligation to stay in the house. In fact, it might be much worse to do so. Questions? Pardon the fussing children in the background.
How recently did the child turn 10? Is this like the night of his birthday?
Yep.
Or
night of his birthday.
Can we see the Bairnsnag?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You might ask
But
why the Enclave is helping you out with that.
Okay.
But again, Bairnsnag assume a number of different guises as it should.
I only caught part of that question, but I think I understood. Yes, the Bairnsnag can take different guises. It is going to be very obviously monstrous. Other questions, or are you guys feeling good to go?
Oh, no, I'm sure there's more questions. There's always more questions. Where is the nearest next family?
They are well over a mile away on country roads.
And so I just want to sort of recap what we know about the Bairnsnag. My brain keeps wanting to...
with a G.
Snag, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's after the child because it didn't get the security blanket.
Yep.
It has some ability to shapeshift, but will always obviously be the Bairnsnag.
Yep.
Do we know anything else about its nature or its like associated symbols?
The only known symbols of it are one, it is often depicted with as a clawed hand with a cape of blankets. It always incorporates the blankets it acquires into its body, kind of like one of those bagworms that builds its own little like cocoon out of whatever is local to it.
Can the child see the Bairnsnag?
Yep.
Okay.
So now the family obviously knows that the Bairnsnag is coming for the child.
No, they don't. They think it's a boogeyman.
Oh, But they are familiar with the legend.
Oh yes.
There's
and the
so,
all
okay.
children can see it. All children around here believe in it. And if this child survives this night, he won't believe in it either, even if he sees
right.
it.
Great.
The other option, guys, that springs to mind is if we get the child out of the house, or I guess it's a continuation of the option. We get the child out of the house. Maybe we try and find the missing blanket.
I mean, I think that searching for the blanket is probably our best option.
Just in terms of defeating the thing. I mean, it would seem like a straight up fight if we don't somehow incorporate the blanket into the plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a thought about that. I think it'll be more effective if it comes to fruition. You'll probably see it coming, though.
Okay.
In one of those, like, if you explain the plan will not work kind of ways.
Oh yeah, yeah. But when
I think searching for the blanket is a good plan A.
Yeah.
I think my idea is more of a plan C.
But you know what though, I'm good with plan C, D, E, F. I've found that has to be taken into account on a regular basis with these. So yeah, I say that if you guys are good with it, let's hit the ground running with getting a hold of the child. Again, finding a way to spirit the child out of the house, and then we start trying to figure out where this blanket may have gone off to. One last question, Robbie, at least for me, one last question. Is this family, are they at odds with any other families in the surrounding area? I mean, this is a wealthy family. Do they have any rivals?
Excellent question.
Nearby.
The family is on lukewarm terms with a number of nearby families. They are competitors with each other. More substantially, though, the family has been having problems with their workers recently.
Workers. Are workers housed nearby, kind of plantation style thing?
Workers are housed on the property, separate building to the main farmhouse.
Okay.
When the Bairnsnag is looking for the child, does it just know that, like, this is the kid's room, it's going to be going there, or can it, like, hone in on where the child is at any given time?
Great question. It's not clear.
Okay. I didn't think it would be, but it was worth a shot.
Native sort of magic awareness in the setting?
Magic around here is not well known. Largely just considered to be, again, kind of boogeyman sort of stuff. Quick addendum to what I said earlier. There are troubles with the workers. This particular child is well liked by the workers, like quite well liked.
Is the child expecting us?
No.
Okay. Does the child have a name that we know?
Yes.
Do we know the child's name?
Elki.
Rather.
Elki. Elki.
Okay.
I'd say from here we move on to assembly.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm good.
Then mission start.
I'm good.
Assembly is when your characters come together at Enclave HQ and meet briefly before getting deployed out onto the mission. As of now, you all are in character, though of course you have questions. Don't worry, like you can ask that without having to be in character, and you should of course be describing your actions and things out of character. Rather than having you guys come in piecemeal, we will say that each of you are led in turn through Enclave HQ by an anonymous attendant through to this beautifully decorated gray meeting room with everything you might need before a mission, small amenities, things like that, but everything only ever decorated in shades of gray. And you are all brought into this meeting room at the same time. If you need a prompt as to who goes first, we will arbitrarily say Foolish Pigeon. But other than that, take it away.
All right. So Pigeon is sort of lanky and flexible. He's got a big old grin on his face. And he's dressed in a colorful motley. And he's got makeup on his face as well. It's all bright greens and blues and oranges. He also has, like I said, the giant hammer strapped to his back. Mm-hmm. As well as a masked helmet hanging off of his belt. And tucked into, he's got pockets all over his outfit, but tucked in, you see about a half a dozen juggling knives. And he, those of you with a decent chunk of spirit will be able to tell that even though he's grinning, the grin is not at the moment reaching his eyes. But he looks at you and says, well,
I like it.
Time to make sure a young child's birthday is a good one, eh?
I would say so. Ajax is, your traditional big guy with a sword. We're talking, 6 foot plus tall, heavy, not heavy set, but broad shoulders, large individual, covered in armor, combination of chainmail and plate put together in an efficient, you would guess at least, manner for protecting against all kinds of different things. Wearing a large cloak that kind of covers from the shoulders around and back behind him, of this deep ocean blue almost, with a silver sigil in the back that is going to have the appearance of kind of a wolf howling at the moon. Large sword hangs by his side, carries a shield with him, and crumpled in his right hand, he's holding a banner attached to its pole, but it's not billowing or flowing at the moment, holding it in place, but seems serious, not apprehensive, but is taking this very seriously. I'm prepared whenever you fellows are.
Sloan, there's not much to describe on him. When you look at Sloan, due to his duster, remembering exactly what he looks like and understanding what his face, understanding the appearance of his face, it's a little bit hazy for most people. But Sloan, due to his backstory, which we will not get into, due to his backstory, Sloan does not like children to be in peril. And so Sloan would have, if you do end up noticing the expression on Sloan's face, it would be one of almost anger, because this is a mission that he would take very seriously because of his backstory. And we're good. I'm good to go.
Just because I'm curious, based on the Ajax influence, is Ajax's armor, is it like muscular like Greek armor, or is it just sort of more up-to-date practical armor?
You know what? That's a great question that I hadn't considered. Let's really take the inspiration, whole hog here and say that, yes, there is some Greek influence in the way that it's crafted, but it's definitely a mix of the two. It's very medieval, but with some Greek influence in there as well.
Cool. Jester, Pigeon is gonna, he sort of looks at the two, nods and says, "Yeah, let's get to it."
And as you say this, an Enclave attendant opens the door and wordlessly beckons for you to follow. Brought through Enclave HQ, passing within its maze-like hallways and underneath its soaring cathedral vaulted ceilings, and past throngs upon throngs of faceless, identically suited attendants, with many colorful agents following behind them. Some wave to you, some nod, some don't even catch your eye, but eventually you are brought through to a small, unassuming room, dark, with rounded corners at the floors and ceilings. There are 3 gleaming platforms on the ground, and a disembodied voice says to you as you enter, "Agents, please take your places atop the telepads." Final actions or notes before we begin.
Nothing for me. I'll step up
Nope.
on my platform.
Pigeon, as he's walking towards it, he sort of leans over, like conspiratorially, like he doesn't want the attendants to overhear. Just says, I swear they can make this process way less unpleasant. They just don't want to.
Sloan will let the corner of his mouth just tilt up slightly at the amusement of that statement because he's thinking the exact same thing as he steps up on the platform.
And at that,
Of course, what's great is Pigeon doesn't mean it at all.
and at that, you feel a tingling sensation start within your body, beginning in your toes and buzzing up as though your limbs are falling asleep. When it hits your eyes, your vision explodes into a miasma of color, and the world vanishes away like you had been put under for surgery. But then, as quickly as it came, the sensation leaves, and you find yourselves inside of a creaky old room with a heavy sloped ceiling that is low enough that Ajax would have to crouch to get all the way through to one part of it, but he's at the tall part now. It's loud in this room. The wind outside is high, and you hear the rustling and crackling of falling leaves and ripe harvest outside being blown about in the breeze. The building is not particularly well insulated, as many old buildings are, and as such, the wind goes right through it, and so it's noisy, and there's whistling where it hits cracks in the wood. The room itself is quite pretty and beautifully decorated for an old house. It has a lovely, well-made iron-cornered bed, and it has even a little portrait up on the wall. It has some stuffed toys in it, a hobby horse, but you can see the only light is coming from outside where there is a full moon, and you can see framed in the window is a boy in a sleeper onesie sort of thing, standing at the window, his arms tense as he stares out of it. Immediate actions upon porting in. We will begin with Sloan.
Sloan is going to. Are my eyes adjusted? Can I see pretty well in here?
Your eyes adjust
is there a
faster than
change?
anyone else's.
Okay. Then is there a door into the room?
Yes, you are standing
nearby.
right next to it.
Of course there is. Nearby. Okay. The thing that I'm going to do is take a quiet step to the door. I want to look up and down the corridor just to get bearings on where we are.
Absolutely.
That's my first act.
You find that you're right next to the staircase. It is rather tight and spidery almost, and leads down. You can see that there are 3 other doorways on either side of this hallway, and then a fourth at the very end of the hallway. They are not marked except for the one at the end, which you can see is more embellished and has a name placard on it. Beyond that, the only thing that you would note is outside of this door, there is a little end table that has a small tray of milk on it and some half-eaten biscuits.
Okay.
Other notes from Sloan?
Nothing at the moment.
Cool. In that case, Pigeon, actions.
Pigeon will sort of gesture to everybody to keep their voices down, and he will step towards Elki and quietly say, "Hi, Elki."
The boy jumps almost to the ceiling and whips around. You can see he's a thin child and with kind of an equine face. And as he whips around, you can see that he's clutching a pillow to his chest, but he's also holding a letter opener in his hand as a little knife. And he presses his body up against the window, looking terrified and panting.
"You're very brave, aren't you? We're here to help." And Pigeon is going to produce from one of his pockets a little piece of candy and hold it out to Elki.
He barely manages to swallow and says, You're him, aren't you?"
"No, my name is Foolish Pigeon. This is Ajax, and that over there is Sloan."
He looks over. "Where did you come from?"
"We came to help. We've been sent to protect you."
"How?"
"Magic."
He barely manages to swallow again and says, "Can I have some water?"
"Absolutely. I don't have any on me. Let's go get some water."
He nods and then looks over his shoulder out of the window again, and you see him shiver. Before we go further, I should note, this entire conversation to Sloan's ears is almost indecipherable over the sound of the wind. The wind masks a lot of the noise that has happened. Even the opening of the door, the wind masks that very easily. Ajax, actions from you while Sloan is checking the hallway and Pigeon is approaching Elki.
My immediate response upon seeing the child is going to be to make myself as non-intimidating as possible.
Yeah.
So kind of like squat down, not like sit or anything like that, but just kind of squat down on my feet, smile at the child and like not seem threatening. But while I'm doing that, I'm looking around the room. I'm assuming this won't be successful, but for any sign of any blanket that seems like it could be a child's blanket.
Yep.
To start with, yeah.
And as you look around, first of all, there's a number of nice hanging quilts on the wall, but those definitely don't look like the sort of thing that were meant to do anything besides hang there. You can see there's rugs on the floor, but those are obviously rugs. He does have sheets and bedding, but none of them are a security blanket. And he does have stuffed animals, but none of them look like they are made out of scraps of blanket.
Okay.
So you, as your eyes scan the room and adjust to the relative darkness, you'd be picking out all of these, lovely little details of a child's room, but absolutely none of them would have anything to do with being a security blanket.
Okay. And as Pigeon and Elki, I'm assuming, are making your way to the hallway to get water. Is that kind of where you're headed?
Pigeon is going to follow. Pigeon assumes Elki knows where to get water.
Okay. Then, as they kind of move away from the window, I'm going to sort of replace where they were, and I'm going to look out the window to just keep my eyes peeled on what's going on outside.
Sure. I should note that as Elki is walking away from the window, he says in shaky tones, "There's only one grabber, and there's 3 of you, so it's probably not you, because I don't think he can become 3 people."
Yes, you have nothing to worry about, Elki. We're here to help.
As Ajax takes the window, he looks out and can see that it looks over the front drive of the house, which is on like a big sweeping hill that plunges down towards a beautiful lake with soaring cliffs on every side besides this one. There's a small dockyard down, like very small dock, with a couple of like local ships down at the base of the property, and the property's carriage drive leads off into a set of snaking woodlands, which are mostly shedding their leaves at this point. The woodlands go up to the cliffs, down to the lake, and off to the side away, but this window doesn't look out over the house's crop fields or any of the other buildings on the premises. As you are looking out, you do not see any sign of life or movement besides, of course, the heavy, heavy wind, which shakes the trees and sends leaves scattering everywhere like swarms of bats. As Elki is bringing Pigeon over towards the door of the room, still clutching his letter opener and his pillow, Sloan, actions from you.
Okay, guys, I apologize because you've locked up on me a little bit, but I think it's sorted itself out now. Pigeon, did you tell Elki why we're here?
Just in the sense that we're here to protect him. I think the implication was understood that it is from the Bairnsnag.
Okay. I'm gonna. So I didn't hear, Robbie. You had mentioned that I didn't hear the conversation that took place between Pigeon and Elki, correct?
You absolutely did hear it because you have excellent ears, but it was almost indecipherable because of the wind. So even to your great ears, you had trouble hearing it.
Okay. I'm going to actually kneel down next to Elki when they arrive at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, Elki, one of the things that we're thinking about doing to protect you, and I'm not going to say from what, but just to protect you, we need to get you out of the house to a safe place. Can you lead us to the best exit out of here so that we don't wake up anyone else in the house?
Should I tell my mother?
I'm afraid we can't tell your mother or your father.
Can't see the threat. They won't believe you.
Can I have some...
I understand.
He points past Sloan to the end table. Can I have some milk first?
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He grabs the entire, like, flagon of it and just starts to, like, drink it with 2 hands.
Robbie, while he's drinking from the flagon of milk, I'm going to look for a small stuffed animal, one that is close to his bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to actually pocket that. Even, he doesn't need to see me doing it. I'm just going to pocket it.
So it'd have to be small enough to fit in your pocket. There is a little dog made of yarn that's about that small. You can fit it in the palm of your hand quite easily.
That's what I'm going to take.
Pigeon's also going to take this moment to, breach a comfort barrier, as it were. And while Elki is taking a drink, he's just going to place a hand on Elki's back and just sort of rub it lightly and reassuringly.
The boy dropped the letter opener when he drinks, but he sets the pitcher down, doing the thing children sometimes do of spluttering a little bit, having taken a little bit too much. And as he sets the pitcher back down, spluttering again, he says, "I need a coat, otherwise I'll catch a cold."
You do? Where are your coats?
He points downstairs.
All right, just a moment. And Pigeon's going to step back into the room and grab the most, blanket bit of bedding off the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are heading out.
Let's talk more about Sloan. Anything else he would like to do while Elki is drinking?
Real quick question before we do that, Robbie. Did you mention that we are under a time constraint? Is everything going to be fine at midnight of the child's birthday, or do we know?
Oh, excellent question. You do not know that, but presumably the dawn will bring safety.
Okay.
Yeah, I sort of figured it would be dawn.
All right. Once I've pocketed the animal, I'm going to look at my 2 oversized companions here, or my heavily armored companions, and I'm going to see about actually taking the lead in terms of making our way down the corridor as Elki directs, just because I might be a little bit quieter than either of them. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be the case, but Sloan is assuming that that's going to be the situation. So more through hand gestures than actual talking. He'll point to himself and point as though, "Why don't you let me go in front?"
Yep. Pigeon, actions from you, then Ajax.
Pigeon, so having grabbed a blanket off of Elki's bed and sort of folded it up into a carryable shape, probably something rectangular, he's going to once again approach Elki, sort of kneel down next to him and go, "Can you point out where the creaky spots on the stairs are as we go down?"
He nods. And Ajax.
As soon as Sloan kind of demonstrates that that's what he's envisioning the plan to be, acknowledgement of that, understand that I'm going probably last down the stairs. Anytime Elki's going to be looking at me over the course of any of these interactions, because I know that I'm probably the biggest one here, just smiling as politely, as kindly as possible, just to understand, hey, you don't have to be scared of anything here. But before we kind of prepare to leave the room, I'm going to wait until the last possible minute to stop looking out the window before we leave. And before we leave, really just checking all of the metallic things that I'm carrying around with me, so nothing's clanking or banging against the walls as we make our way through here. So one hand firmly on the sword, sheathed, just to make sure that it's not swinging out, hitting anything, and then making sure that the top and bottom of my banner are also not hitting anything as we go through these doorways and make our way through the narrow halls.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good that you paid attention to all of those things. And because you're not wearing just any old ramshackle crap set of armor, this suit is not going to cause problems if you're being careful. Nice. And in that case, is the group going to be proceeding downstairs, or any final notes before doing so? Excellent.
Nothing from me.
I might quibble over the description of Pigeon as being heavily armored.
Relative to Sloan, maybe. You got a helmet. But in that case, as you guys begin to proceed, Elki is pretty much just behind Sloan and breathes in his ear once in a while, "Bad step, careful." Or, "Hug the wall." Or, "Careful of the crack." And as you creak your way down the stairs, it sometimes will make like a little or something like that, but nothing worse than that. And Pigeon and Ajax can roughly follow in their steps, it being quite obvious when Sloan steps to the side or skips a step or something like that. Ajax also has the benefit of being tall enough to actually be able to put a hand on the rafters as he is going down, because the rafters like slope with the staircase, allowing him to take some weight off of the steps with his big feet. As you guys come to the bottom of the stairs, however, you find yourself in quite a beautiful, if rustic, hallway living room kind of combo thing. There's a kitchen off to one side, there's a fancy parlor off to another side, and from here you can see through some of the larger windows out not only across the fields in several directions, but over to the family's barn and over towards another large building off to the side, which might be where the workers are, and to a carriage house off to the side. Overall, a relatively large compound, but it also gives you a straight shot out across their driveway to the woods. As you reach the first floor, Elki would whisper loudly enough that people can hear over the wind, even if only slightly, "No one sleeps down here."
Elki, can you tell us where your jacket is?
Yeah.
Where can we find a coat?
Yes.
Why don't you just, I'll tell you what, how about, is it nearby?
Yes.
Why don't you just quietly go over and get it and we'll wait here for you, all right?
Yes. He starts slinking across the hallway towards a wardrobe.
I do want to drop in that in response to Nobody Sleeps Down Here, Pigeon will have cracked a joke along the lines of, "Well, then we shall endeavor not to break that rule."
And any follow-ups from Pigeon upon reaching the bottom of the stairs?
He's basically going to stick to Elki. He's sort of as the most approachable, almost supernaturally so, thanks to some of his gear. As the most approachable and comfortable and kid-friendly, he's definitely like, "I am your shadow. I am sticking with you. I am gonna keep you feeling safe."
Could you remind the effect on your helmet, please?
Yes. So, while he is not wearing the helmet, Pigeon looks more heroic. No, I'm sorry. Background. Back. Other way around. When he puts the helmet on, allies and neutral NPCs see him as a more heroic, powerful figure. But when it's off, enemies will see him as less threatening.
Yep. Now, as you are like escorting him out across, Ajax, actions from you upon reaching the bottom of the stairs.
So this room that we're in right now, as I look around, how many windows are leading into it?
Bunch, like 5.
Like 5? Okay. Do the windows have shutters on the outside?
They do, though the shutters have been blown open by the wind and kind of clatter against the side of the house.
Okay. Are there locks on the windows leading in here?
Getting a little closer to see that because your eyes aren't good enough to pick it out from here. Unless you have a plus to sensory. Do you have a plus to sensory, perchance?
I don't know.
Yeah, so in that case, you'd have to get a little closer. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Going over, you can see that a few of them do, and a few of them previously did, but they have either rusted off or are just like out of order.
Okay. And any of the ones that do have locks, I'm going to make sure that they're all locked tightly. And I'm just, for the sake of time, as we make our way through any of the rooms on this first floor, I'm going to make sure I do the same thing in each one of those rooms.
As you are walking around, by the way, you would see against the, coming through a window, draping out over the nice carpet or the nice rug that they have in this like main living room area, you would see a looming kind of fingered shadow come into view. And then quickly pull back away.
And this is regularly happening with all of the windows that I look through?
No, just one of the ones that you approach to lock.
Oh, okay. As soon as I see that, I'm looking out to see if I can see any signs of what caused the...
Yep, and peeking out the window, you can see a distant tree branch swaying with the moon silhouetted behind it.
Of course.
Okay. Then I continue going about my business after I make sure I see there's nothing aside from that branch.
Yep. Elki has reached the wardrobe, pulled it open carefully, and rustled inside and pulled out like a very heavy kind of oversized moleskin type deal that goes all the way down to the floor. He throws it over and then grabs out like a big earmuff hat and sticks it on his head as well. And then, thinking twice about that, he also reaches inside and pulls out a hatchet. He kind of thinks about where to put it, realizes he doesn't have a waistband, and sticks it in the pocket of the moleskin, where the head pokes out awkwardly. But as he is getting stuff out of the wardrobe, Sloan, other actions you would like to take. Ajax is going across the room checking windows. Pigeon is next to the boy.
I'm just taking a look around this room. I want to find, is there an exit from this room, like a front door? Is there some way out of this room to the outside?
Yeah, there is. This room is pretty much right next to the front door hallway, and connects directly to it. So you can pretty much see straight to the front door from here. It's a heavy thing that uses a bar lock.
Oh, geez. Okay, once Elki has the clothing, I will go over to Elki, kneel down, and say, "What's going to be the quietest way out of here? Is it the front door, or is there a better way to go?"
He thinks about it and says, "What direction are we going?"
Don't worry about that right now. We just want to get out of the house. That's our big concern.
He says,
as quickly as we can.
He thinks about it for a moment, and then points to one of the windows that Ajax had investigated. He says, "That window doesn't lock properly and always slides back shut."
I'm going to take a look at that window. Does it look like Ajax is going to be able to fit out that window?
Yes, these are quite big, and they are like big square windows that clearly were like the main way sun gets in. You know.
Right. Okay. I'll whisper to the others. Maybe we just head out that window.
I have a thought. Mm-hmm. So technology level, you said sort of medieval-esque. Yep. So would they have lanterns?
They do have lanterns. In fact, you can see an unlit one over by the door.
Pigeon's going to collect that.
Yep, absolutely.
Actually, well, no, because Pigeon is not leaving Elki, so he's actually gonna go. Hey, Sloan, go grab that lantern.
I'll go grab.
Yep. I should also note, by the way, that the windows around here, given that it's medieval, are not single big panes of glass. They're many small panes of glass, and they swing open like doors rather than being pulled open like that. Which also means that in this case, many of them are quite tall, which does also help Ajax in terms of getting through one. Elki would go creeping over towards that window, and with a practiced ease, unlatch it and start to push it open.
I'm going to actually move quickly over to where Elki is because I don't know what's outside, and I don't want this thing to suddenly grab Elki because the child is too close to the door or to the window. And I'm going to pull the child back gently away from the window and then take a look outside.
He looks over his shoulder, scared for a second, and then looks back towards the window, which he had just reached for the latch of. As you go to look outside, you can see that directly below this window, there is a set of beautiful little flower gardens, which are, dead and fallow for the winter. However, you can see that, moving across the flower garden is a skittering movement that initially looks like ants and then looks like water, but then to your eyes looks like leaves. And you can see just dead autumn leaves blowing across.
Sloan's going to take a quick second just to inhale and reset his mind because I've got a feeling that things are starting to play tricks on him from the stress of the situation. I just need to reset as I'm standing there at the window.
And as you are doing so, Pigeon, actions from you.
Pigeon is going to. I think he's going to lean over. All right. Is there any reason we shouldn't head out now?
Sloan is midway through his reset. Is there any response he would have to that as he's catching his breath?
I'm not going to respond. I'm just going to give a kind of a thumbs up and then point toward the window. Let's go.
You first.
I'll open up now. Okay, Robbie, in one of my previous adventures, I ended up having the Enclave give me 3 coins that I can use to attract people's attention. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do.
I've got 2 of those left. I sure I lost one in the last adventure we were on.
Was this
I'm going to get
was
out
this
one.
a consumable or a common item? I believe it was a common item. Yeah.
Uh, I don't know, but it just had a slight magical property on it
Yep, that's a
that was
common
meant
item.
to attract attention.
Common item
Okay.
for sure. In that case, it means you actually recover it after the mission, regardless of what you did with it.
Okay, so then I've got 3 of them. I'm going to get one of those out. I'm not even getting out any of the weapons. I'm just getting out that coin,
Yep.
and I'm holding it in my hand as I open the windows and get ready to step outside.
Yep, absolutely. Ajax, actions that you would like to take. You have done your little perimeter scan of the windows here. You've heard the conversations transpiring, though admittedly they've been a little faint because of the wind. Actions that you would like to take as your allies and Elki have gathered around the first window that you passed a little earlier.
As everyone is preparing to go out through that window, I'm assuming until we get outside that I'm still going to be the last person who's actually moving and last person in the order. So as they get ready, I'm just looking behind us just to make sure that nothing is shifting, changing inside the room or the area that we're in right now.
Yep.
I'm not necessarily looking for anything in particular. My primary focus is just going to be looking for movement. Anything that's moving in a way it shouldn't be, that doesn't match up with the wind.
Absolutely, yeah. The wind does throw a big confound in there. It makes the shutters clatter. It makes the leaves fly about outside. It makes the tree branches blow. But one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't make bar locks move. And as you look over to the side, you can see the bar lock is actually halfway off the door.
Oh,
I immediately reach out, and whichever of the two, which either Pigeon or Sloan, whoever's closest to me, I'm going to kind of touch them, shake
Pigeon.
them a little bit, and indicate towards the door.
Yep, that would be Pigeon.
Pigeon will look over he will quickly but not like jerkily so that he doesn't draw Elki's attention when he looks.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will I assume see the bar, understand what Ajax is communicating, and sort of nod grimly before the smile returns to his face.
Once I have indicated that, I will very gently set down the banner on the floor and start to draw my sword, trying to do it in a very calm, careful way so as to not alarm Elki too much about what's going on.
Absolutely.
Pigeon will actually, as you sort of go to put the banner down, Pigeon will just reach out to offer to take it from you.
Thank you.
Yep. And you would see that as you look over, the bar lock very surreptitiously moves, so it's like halfway off. It does like another little before your eyes.
Okay. How much space do I have left? Can I close that gap before it's off, moving
Absolutely.
at the rate that it is?
Yep, it's
then
moving.
Yeah, once the sword is out, I close the gap and I'm going to push it back into place.
You feel a little bit of resistance at first, but then the resistance gives, and you close the bar lock back across.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Alex.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, have we lit the lantern?
You have not.
Do we have a way to light it out in the field?
The lantern, when found, would have been noted to have a small, like, fire lighting flint tool with it, and oil already inside.
I was definitely envisioning, like, we get outside and we're like, hey, it's kind of dark. Let's light that lantern. How do you light it?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very understandable. But in this case, not something you need to worry about just yet. Follow-ups from Ajax before we jump back over to Sloan.
No. That's it for me.
Sure. In that case, Sloan, your little moment of recomposure would be halted by the bar lock being, like, gently thudded back into place. What would you like to do from here?
Okay, I need a point of clarification. The window that we're going out, is that on the opposite side of the house or from the front door, or is it on the same side?
It's on the right side. So if the front door is here, it would be here.
Okay, all right. If that's the case, then if I get the door open or the window open, I'm going to step out. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that I would know that the bar was being moved because I was intent on the window. The first thing I will do is step out into the decaying garden, and then Sloan being Sloan, he will pull out a pistol and he has the coin at the ready.
Yep.
And then he's going to observe everything that's going on outside just to orient himself before he lets anybody else come out the window after him.
Yep. The wind is up and a great like eddy of leaves goes whipping past Sloan as he does so. They obviously draw eyes because of movement, but he has the sensory to not be completely discombobulated by them. And looking about, he does not see any other substantive movement that cannot be explained by the wind.
Then I'll turn around and motion to the guys still inside the house to come on out the window. And I'm going to move actually farther away, probably a good 15 or 20 feet, just to be able to get a broader field of view around the window.
Yep, absolutely. As you beckon, Pigeon, actions from you. You have Elki with you.
Pigeon's gonna he'll give a little warning in the form of up you go, but he's gonna scoop Elki up onto his shoulders.
Yep.
And step through the window.
It's a bit of an awkward step through, but with both of you ducking, you can make it. Elki is lanky, clearly beginning to hit his teenage growth spurt at the age of 10. And Ajax, lastly, what would you like to do?
I will have made sure to have recovered my banner from Pigeon before he did that. And then after everyone's out, back away towards the window and climb out myself.
Certainly. And as the group of you are now outside, with Sloan having stepped a little further away and is clearly still like scanning the peripheries with his pistol drawn and a little coin out in his hand, you guys would be able to look out over, first of all, part of their land, and also the great sweeping like wild grassland and meadow that lead all the way down to the lake below. A little footpath leads down that way as well. Currently, you have the driveway in the front of the house to your left, with the woods beyond. And then to your right, you have their land, their property, all their fields, as well as their barn and presumably their workers' house in sight, though not the rest of their compound. And then straight ahead of you is the sloping meadow leading down to the lake. After exiting the building, we don't even have to say that all of you are on high alert at this point. There would still be the blowing of leaves about and the swaying of tree branches in the distance, and once in a while the moon is ever so slightly obscured by a wispy cloud, but you actually still have a good amount of light despite that. Actions you would like to take after defenestrating, beginning with Ajax in this case. Last out, first in.
Sword is still going to be out, and I'm going to do kind of a similar thing to Sloan. I'll move a little bit further out away from the house, but I'm going to orient myself looking the opposite kind of direction of whichever way Sloan is looking. So either if that's the way towards the door that was being opened, or the other way, I'm turning away from the rest of the group and just looking around our surroundings.
Sloan, woods, lake, fields, what are you primarily focusing on?
Woods, lake, fields. I will be focusing on the woods.
Sure. In that case, Ajax would naturally be focusing on the fields on the opposite side. Ajax would, because of that, notice that there are a few faint lights on in the workers' building. Pigeon, actions you'd like to take.
Pigeon will be keeping himself between Sloan and Ajax, sort of keeping himself and Elki in the middle of the group.
Yep.
And he will once we've moved a little ways away from the house, and especially with the sound of the wind and all the banging of the shutters and out the windows.
Yeah.
He's actually going to start singing a funny little children's song softly, not at the top of his lungs, but louder, I think, than the whispering they were doing in the house.
Yep.
And it's some sort of comedic little tale. It's mostly just sort of to keep everybody, but especially Elki, calm and not panicking.
Yes, indeed. With the wind being high, your singing low would probably mean your teammates would not be able to hear you. Is this acceptable?
Fine.
Absolutely. From here, now that the group of you are out, what direction would you like to start moving, and who's going to initiate it? I suppose we'll begin with Sloan to see if he has options here.
Sloan's going to move back after he's made sure that there is no apparent imminent threat. He wants to go back to Pigeon and Elki, kneel down next to Elki and say...
Elki's on shoulders, which means you don't even have to worry about that.
Okay. Then I'll walk up and I will give one of Sloan's kind of half smiles, which is all he ever gives. He'll give a half smile to Elki and then say, Elki, you got any friends out here that we could go and pay a visit to among the workers? I'd kind of like to talk to them.
He nods slowly and says,
Yeah. Yeah. They're usually up right now.
Well, could you point the direction so we could head on over there? Guys, I'm thinking we go over and we start this search for the blanket or whatever with one of the workers just to talk to them and see if they have any possible insight into, number one, somebody who didn't like the family, Elki's family, and wanted to exact some sort of revenge. I'm not exactly even sure what, but I think we need a starting point in terms of unraveling the mystery, or if not unraveling the mystery, keeping ahead of what's following us. I think we need some more information.
I just want to check in on something. So,
yeah.
My understanding is that part of the sort of power of the Bairnsnag is that once you successfully get through your 10th birthday, you just automatically stop believing that it's an actual thing, that it's anything other than a story. Is that correct?
That seems to be the case.
Okay. So in that case, Pigeon is sort of going to eye Sloan. He's going to go, they won't believe us.
But be that as it may, we need to get information about what the situation is here at the farm before there's got to be some reason that blanket has disappeared. I can't think of another starting point other than going and talking to some of the workers just to get a lay of the social situation here, and whether or not workers might be involved in the disappearance, another family might be involved in the disappearance. Right now, we're kind of wandering blind.
May I?
Yeah, fire away, Ajax.
I'm going to kind of scoot back towards where everyone's standing, and I'm just going to ask Elki. I'm going to smile at him, and then ask Elki, do you remember the last place that you had your blanket? Do you have any recollection of that?
He frowns and kind of shakes his head and says,
I haven't needed a blankie since I was like 5.
Mm-hmm.
He says, that's a little kid thing.
Sure. No, I understand. Just thought I'd ask.
I think my mom kept it somewhere, but it's because it's traditional that you leave it out. But she said she lost it, and now we're here, I guess.
Is there any place where your mom keeps a lot of things from when you were a kid? Maybe a chest or a box somewhere?
Oh yeah, in her room, but she tore the whole place to shreds looking for it and couldn't find it.
Okay. Thank you, Elki.
Yeah, if we want to go talk to some of the guys.
he doesn't point towards the workers' compound, but he points to the barn.
They usually play cards in there at night.
Should we go look? Gang?
I suppose it's
I
possible.
can't think of any place else.
It's possible
ahead.
one of the workers figured that Elki would miss the blanket and took it for one of their kids.
That's kind of what I was wondering, is if there was another child, one of the poorer children, needed to have a blanket, and somehow it was just taken, not in a mean way, but just as, hey, nobody's using this blanket, I'm going to give it to my kid. Yeah, I say we go over to the barn and just ask. It's not going to hurt. Hopefully.
Yeah, famous last words.
Yeah.
This is one of those moments where I really wish that Pigeon was a couple levels higher and I'd gotten to the point of giving him a point in intelligence, because I have a question that I don't have the intelligence to get the answer to right now.
Yeah. Would the group like to start making their way across the fields towards the barn?
Pigeon still has his reservations about involving anyone who's too serious for this business, but he doesn't feel strongly enough to fight the other two, who both seem to feel like talking to the workers is a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's start moving over that direction. And then Sloan will step out and just start leading the way. I don't want to get too far away from everybody else, but I also don't want to be... I would rather have Sloan be a potential target as opposed to anything else, so that Pigeon and Elki might have more reaction time if something does happen. So, I'm thinking maybe being 15, 20, 25 feet in front. And I'll let the other two know that that's my intent.
Sure. Of note, do you guys, to get to the barn, there are a couple of different ways you could go. There's a footpath that leads through to it, as well as a slightly more circuitous kind of like trailer, like a carriage and wagon way. But you can also take the much more direct route that goes directly through the fields. Which would you guys prefer? In this case, Sloan taking point will probably be the one who has the de facto choice on that, unless the others say otherwise.
The fields are basically barren at the moment, right? Everything's harvested.
The fields are not fully harvested. Some sections are. The section that you guys would be crossing here is mostly harvested, but there's a lot of very full fields elsewhere out that are much higher up. These are more like chest level stuff.
So Sloan would be naturally looking for the route that is going to give the widest and best field of view.
Wagon route.
So if moving it, yeah. So if I'm not going to be going overland through things that have waist high, or even, knee high crop remains. I want to take the area that's going to give us the best chance of noticing if something is waiting for us in ambush.
Absolutely. As you do so, and the wind continues to go high and the leaves continue to blow about, the group of you make your way along the wagon way towards the barn. Actions as you travel, we will begin with Pigeon, then Ajax.
As we a little closer to the barn, so not immediately, but as we get closer, Pigeon's going to turn his head. He's going to look up at Elki, catch his eyes, give him a little smirk, waggle his eyebrows, and then he's going to plop his masked helmet on with its so it doesn't quite cover it doesn't cover his mouth, but it does cover pretty much up above that. What you can see, it has like this ferocious expression, but because you can see his eyes and you can see his mouth, it gives him sort of at the same time that it's more like he's play acting at being a hero than being one.
Indeed. As you do so, for the first time since you've arrived, you see Elki have the smallest smile and kind of like pinch the drawn-on eyebrows of your ferocious face on the mask, and then give it like a little ting with his finger to see if it's metal.
It is absolutely metal. It's it's probably steel.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason not to. I think that's sort of the technology of Pigeon's home.
He would say, "What monster is this?" Pinging the mask again.
Me.
You hear Elki say, "No, you're not a monster. Monsters are scary."
Good.
Ajax, actions from you as you travel.
So I'm going to be about the same distance behind that Sloan is in front. And what I'm picturing as we kind of make our way down this carriageway is, are there trees on either side, or is it just going to be kind of a big open area?
It's fields on either side, and so on one side of you, it would be mostly like chest height harvested stuff that you can see through pretty easily. It's straggly, right? Whereas on your right, there's a little bit more of the chest height stuff, but then it goes to dense wheat fields that have not yet been harvested.
Okay, so then as we walk, I'm going to be looking at both sides, but once we hit the part that hasn't been harvested, I'm going to move a little bit more towards that, a little bit closer to Pigeon and Elki, just so if there is something that jumps out of that more dense part that we can't see, hopefully I can at least close that gap and get a little bit in between them.
Sure.
But I'm also keeping an eye behind as we walk as well. But once we get to the part that's not harvested, that's my primary focus.
Now, Sloan, actions from you as we walk.
How far away are we from the barn?
The barn is not a short distance from the house. It would be well beyond a stone's throw. However, it would not take tremendously long to walk there. Even at a relatively slow pace, it would be well under 5 minutes, more like 3. Because of that, actions that Sloan would like to take. As you can say, as you approach the barn, you have something you want to do.
Okay, well, I'm gonna do a minor pitch here. One of the things that Sloan does in terms of his marksmanship one of the things that he has to be aware of is patterns.
Yeah.
So it might be a pattern in the wind. It might be a pattern in the movement of his target. So Sloan, something that is inherent to his nature is the ability to recognize patterns at a very quick, on very short notice. So with all the wind that's moving around and leaves that are moving and the moving of the stalks of the recently harvested crops and the crops that still need to be harvested, if I'm seeing movements in the trees, I want to take a quick second to focus on those patterns and then look for an area where the pattern doesn't fit and see if that makes its appearance to Sloan's normal observation of the patterns around him. Is there like a dead spot in the patterns of everything that's going on?
The leaves blow in eddies and curls, and the trees wave likewise. The grass is more, the wheat is more like water in how the wind goes across it in great waves. And yet, when looking for a dead spot, there is something that your eyes keep coming back to, which is not far from the barn. You can see that there's like an old tree that maybe is abundant at other times of year, but right now is completely dead. And you can see that its branches do not blow. It's a bigger tree. Maybe it's just too tough and sturdy for it. But you can see that there are a number of things dangling from its branches. Maybe old lanterns or signs or something like that.
I'm going to stop and move quietly back, keeping my eye on that tree. I'm going to stop and move back to Pigeon and Elki.
Yep.
And I'm going to whisper to Elki, Elki, is that tree always there? And I'm going to point to the one that I'm keeping my eye on.
He looks at it for a moment, and then his eyes widen. He says,
No, I've never seen that before.
Okay. And I will mention to both Ajax and Pigeon, I think that we may have found the Bairnsnag. I think it's that tree right over there. And I'll point.
and as Sloan points, the group of you look back over, and it's gone. There's nothing.
Oh.
Elki looks kind of like accidentally covers Pigeon's eyes for a moment as he like pulls his head around to see better. And then pulls back and nods and he says, I saw it. I did.
All right. I'm going to whisper to, I'm going to try and calm down Elki for the first, just say, oh, that's a pretty interesting thing that we just had happen there, isn't it? Then I'm going to talk to both Pigeon and Ajax, and I'm going to say, I'm going to try and keep an eye on whatever this thing might be. I'm going to try and find it again. If you guys want to continue toward the barn, I'll follow up, but at least give me a chance to see if I can find out where this thing is and keep between it and you.
Ajax and Pigeon responses.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I think we should kind of continue slowly making our way towards the barn. There's some safety there, but just don't stray too far from the group would be my only recommendation.
I don't plan to.
Pardon again, Jallorn?
Stay in shouting range. Or at least gunshot range. Gunshot hearing range?
And
now,
Robbie, what I'm going to do is I'm actually, sorry, let me
please,
quickly give you my position. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to stop moving and let them move past me so that I'm better able to concentrate again on those patterns. So yep. I'm just coming to a complete halt.
Absolutely. And as your eyes readjust to the movements and you see the whirls and the eddies moving all around you, you can hear the shutters clattering on the workers' compound. You can see the weather vanes spinning on the top of the barn. You can start to let your eyes readjust. You notice something while you're out here, though. Despite the fact that it is a full moon, an almost cloudless night, and there's definitely no light pollution, you don't see a single star in the sky.
It's always a good sign.
Now, Ajax and Pigeon, you guys have almost reached the barn. You are near where Elki stares and points to where the tree once stood as he says to both of you, "It was right there. The man back there said it was there too, so you know I'm not lying."
Of course we
Oh,
know you weren't lying.
No, absolutely not, Elki.
But
So as
wait, look. He points. There, that was where the tree was. And you can see that there on the ground is a small object no bigger than a pail.
Give me a moment. I'll go see what it is. I'm going to look back and make eye contact with Sloan, beckon him to come forward and rejoin the group. Sword out, banner ready.
Yep.
I'm going to take just very cautiously, very slowly, a few steps towards where the tree was.
It's in the shadow of the barn, and so it takes you a moment for your eyes to pick out what it is, because it's quite small, but you see it's a stuffed animal.
Okay. I get a little closer, still keeping an eye on my surroundings. Look at the stuffed animal.
I just want to make note that while everyone else is very much focused on this, Pigeon is going to go, all right, I'm going to look everywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Sloan, you had taken the moment to be readjusting your eyes, but you see Ajax's huge form waving you over. Are you going to go rejoin him, or are you going to stay at a distance for now?
No, I'll start making my way toward him to rejoin, but a la Pigeon, I'm checking everywhere, trying to make sure that we're not about to be jumped or attacked or whatever.
Yep, absolutely. As Ajax gets closer, he can see that it kind of looks like a Raggedy Ann, but made of yarn. It's a simple doll, right? It looks like it was well loved. Pigeon, you would hear Elki kind of give a hiss as he's looking, because he's still craning over looking at what Ajax is doing. He says, "That's mine."
This is yours?
Yeah, it was just in my room.
Okay, give me one moment. And I'm going to just kind of take my sword and flip it over very gently.
Yep.
Is there anything on it? Does it look changed? I mean, I've never seen it before, but does it look like some alterations have been made to it? Is there anything strange about it?
Well, when you flip it over, you do see what looks like a small thread on it.
Just just kind of poking out?
It's more like a strand of spider silk.
Oh, okay.
The moonlight catches it. Other than that, you would not have been able to see it.
Okay. Very, very thin, just kind of maybe
thin.
billowing in the wind a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to kind of just squat down a little bit to get a closer look at it.
I'm getting trapdoor spider vibes.
You can see that the thread leads out actually back into the crop field, and as you lean down closer, the thread suddenly goes taut, and the stuffed animal is whisked away back into the cover of the fields. Sloan would see the sudden movement too, though he is not close enough even for his eyes to pick out the thread.
Okay. Immediately snap up, defensively sword towards where the thing got yanked off to, ready for anything to happen.
Absolutely. You would see that the area of crop field that it was whisked off into is completely still, though the wind is still blowing.
Hey, how far is it away from me?
The crop field is less than 5 paces away from you.
Okay, I'm just going to maintain readiness, kind of glance back towards the rest of the group, and especially Sloan, to see where he's maneuvering.
Sure. Sloan, where are you positioning yourself?
I'm assuming that I have not reached the group yet.
You're close.
Or have I?
You're closer to Pigeon than you are to Ajax.
Okay, now have I noticed this dead spot that Ajax is focused on?
Well, you can see where his eyes are focusing, and because you've been looking for patterns, it quickly jumps to you.
I'm going to whisper to Pigeon, do we want to open up on this thing? Do we want to try and let it know that it's dealing with something that has some teeth? Or do we want to just try and run? What do you think?
Neither. It wants us scared. It's playing with us. Let it keep playing. Buy some time.
Fair enough. So I'll turn around and gesture to Ajax and start pointing toward the entrance to the barn.
Ajax
Okay.
responses.
As I see him do that, I'm just gonna kind of stand up a little bit, maintaining some sort of defensive stance, and then just back away.
Yep.
From where it's standing, or from where this still spot is, back towards the group.
Certainly. As you do so, you can see a little bit of movement as something flits out of the crop field. Sloan would see it too. It doesn't land close to you, but you can see, both of you can now see the trail of thread leading from it back to the crop field. You can see it's a beautiful like ivory pipe that just whips out onto the ground.
I'm just going to, if it's near me, I'm just going to get that wry smile, ignore it, and continue to back toward the barn.
Ajax?
Same. Kind of a look of almost bemusement of that's odd, but not, I don't know, trying to insult whatever's doing this. Of like,
Yeah.
really?
The
Kind of
pipe
that sort of a
starts
thing.
to slink back towards the thing. It's almost like it's being reeled, like.
Reeled in.
And by this point, the group of you only have a few more paces to reach the barn doors. What would you like to do as you arrive at the barn? I'm sure head's still on swivel, but what would you like to do?
Should we have a story?
Elki
A
says,
story?
They probably won't believe it. Best to tell the truth. That's what Dad says.
All right. I'm going to walk toward the door, and I'll open the door and step on in.
the barn door has like a big like slide open. Inside, you hear the faint movement of sleeping animals, but you also hear a distant and then there's dead silence. Sloan's ears could pick out the exact direction, though. You can see that the barn is quite large with a big hayloft, and the sound definitely came from up there.
So is there light up there?
There was. It was faint, but you saw
No,
it, and then it's quickly put out.
Just going to wait until the others are inside the barn if they're coming in
Are you guys going to come in?
before I move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I will as well.
Are you going to close
then-
the door behind you?
I am, yes.
Yep. Remind me Ajax's might stat, by the way.
He's got 2 pluses, so is that
what
just 2?
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah. Okay. In that case, it's where the frickin' balloons coming from. Anyways, in that case, Ajax
Unintentional.
can close the door far easier than Sloan open it.
Okay.
Elki at this point would kind of wiggle on Pigeon's shoulders, trying to get off.
Pigeon will let him down.
Yep. He climbs down and reaches for the crossbar for the barn door to lock it.
Good thinking, Elki. Well done.
He says, "Thanks. I let a pig out once when I was 7, and I've never forgotten."
I'm sure you've gotten some trouble
good.
for that.
Good learning experience.
Yeah.
I'll kneel down next to Elki and say, Elki, could you call out and tell them that you're here? Call out to your friends.
Yeah. And he yells out, "Showen? Showen, are you here?" There's a pause. "Matus, it's fine. You're not in trouble." And then you hear some movement up in the hayloft. Then you hear a voice saying, "Who's there with you, Elki?" "I don't know."
Pigeon will absolutely laugh at this. We are friends and protectors. You probably won't believe us, but I'm Foolish Pigeon.
Yeah. And I'm Sleepy Crow.
Crows are often sleepy.
You hear footsteps as the men start to come down the stairs. There are 4 of them. You notice immediately, or Sloan does, because he's the only one who can see a damn thing in this light, that they are clearly not from around here. Everything from their outfits to their faces to their voices sounds foreign to this land, based on what you've seen from Elki, at least.
I will kneel down next to Elki and say, Elki, it's pretty dark, but can you recognize them, or are they your friends?
Yeah. He points,
Okay.
Shoen, Matus, Wavro, and who's that back there?
He looks for a moment. Ichki. Then, you can call me Ichki. No one else calls me Ichki. Remember that, kid.
What do we call you?
He says, Ichkaso.
Ishikaso it is.
The 4 men come striding up to you guys. You can see that all of them kind of have like the puffing out the chest swagger to kind of see like match up to you guys. But once they see Ajax, they cut that shit out pretty much immediately. And you hear one of them, the first one to speak, presumably Matus, say, "You are armed? You don't know. Why are you armed? We have
We're here
not
to
committed
protect the
any
boy."
crimes. We have not
No.
done anything wrong."
No. You've done nothing wrong. We're not here for you.
This is not some trick by the boss, right?
Of course not.
Elki,
No.
boy, you wouldn't lie. You remember what I said? You lie, your tongue ties itself in a knot. And Elki says, no.
The boy's not lying. We're here for some information. I'm just going to lay this out in front of you. You probably won't believe it.
They won't.
Y'all
That's
y'all-
Pigeon.
y'all know the story about the Bairnsnag, yeah?
They look at each other. They go, no. What's that?
All right. Well, I guess apparently you don't know it. You're not from around here.
No.
See, there's this really crazy story about this thing called a Bairnsnag, and on the 10th birthday of any child, this Bairnsnag will come and take that child if they don't have their blanket.
Wait. One of them interrupts Sloan. Elki, you 10 yesterday, yeah?
Yeah.
So then what are we doing? We gotta save you, right?
That's what we're here for.
Well, why aren't your parents doing that, boy? Elki looks at the group of you, clearly not sure how to respond to this.
Okay, here's the thing. We don't really have time to explain this real thorough like, but the parents can't be involved in this. And I know this all seems like some kind of a fairy tale, but trust me, it's true. We've caught sight of this Bairnsnag creature thingy out there a couple times. We got to do one or two things. We got to keep Elki away from this thing, or we've got to find, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, we've got to find the child's baby blanket and give it to it. That's why we're here, is we're trying to find out where this blanket might be, see if somebody might have stolen it, somebody might have misappropriated it. We're just looking for some sort of answers to try and help little Elki out here. We'd be much obliged if you guys could give us a hand with this.
In response to the blanket thing, 2 of them chuckle, and one of them gives it like a deadly serious,
The guy who gave the,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He follows up after being looked at and says, offering, yeah?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, such things are powerful where I come from.
Powerful here, too. Fortunately, it seems a few years ago, the boy's blanket may have gone missing.
That sounds like the sort
Elki-
of thing your mother would have hung on to.
I'm going to look to Elki and say, Elki, could you describe what your blanket looked like, please?
He says,
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. Made of white yarn, and there was a little lamb sewn onto it.
About how big was it?
Shorter than I am now. Pretty small. And it was getting ratty.
I'm going to look back to the 4 men and say, does that ring any kind of a bell with you gentlemen?
and they look to each other, and one of them says, that does sound kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Maybe. Got to think about it. I don't normally look for that sort of thing,
Yeah, I get it.
But
And as he says but, you guys hear a thud behind you as the barn door goes to slide open, but the lock prevents it from doing so.
I'm gonna look to the four men and say, I think that's our friend here. And I'm gonna stop with the dialogue and turn around and pull out the pistol
Yep.
and face the door.
Elki jumps in the air and then scampers behind Pigeon. And you can see that the four men all take steps back, suddenly looking very afraid. The moonlight has like kind of re-illuminated the inside, giving you guys a little bit more light on the inside of the barn than you had previously. Just enough to see the group of them going from being kind of like bemused to being scared. The thud was loud. Immediate actions from Ajax, then Pigeon.
How big? So the latch has caught the door from opening. How big is the gap now between the door and the wall?
Could get a hand through.
Okay, I'm gonna move forward, sword out, not close enough where something of like human size could reach through and snag me, but looking out that gap, what do I see?
And as you look out the gap, you can see the moon, and you can see the leaves, and you can see what looks like the mechanism of the lock, so to speak, like of a couple of bars crisscrossing over. But you can also see a couple of long appendages that are kind of hooked around and are clearly straining.
Okay, I'm gonna take the sword and jab at those appendages that are sticking through.
And as your sword snakes out, it catches one of the fingers, which immediately causes the appendages to pull away from the door.
Okay, and then back inside. Take a step back.
Pigeon, actions from you while this is happening.
Yes. So you mentioned the moonlight. How, aside from the door that's being pushed open, are there any other places where the where moonlight's coming in?
Yes, there are cracks in the barn, like the barn's construction, as well as there is like a couple of slitted windows to allow a little bit of fresh air in and out for the animals.
Okay. And then is there like, how tall is it? Just sort of a one floor bar? No, you said there's an upper section.
Yeah, there's a big upper section, and the place you are standing in goes straight up to like the roof. So the upper section only takes up like half of the second floor space.
And if Pigeon looks up, is there like any sort of window or opening up there that he can spot?
As Pigeon is looking up, he can actively see a wooden shutter sliding off of a high window.
I presume he wouldn't be able to get up there fast enough.
Oh, definitely not. This is like 30 feet vertical. Need a moment?
No, I think Pigeon's reaction then, so he's going to look up, he's going to see that, he's not going to be able to get up there, and he's going to go, Sloan, up there!
Sloan, actions leading up to this point and immediately after.
Okay, this window is, I'm assuming, almost right above the door, or
Yep.
maybe off to one side or another,
Exactly
but it's
right.
on the same wall as the door. No, I would have been trying to figure out what was going on with the door in front of me when Ajax stabbed the finger. Did it look like the finger was cut, or did it just look like more of a, ouch, that was kind of painful, but the digit remains intact?
Even to Sloan's eyes, it was kind of too dark and he didn't have a great angle on the fingers, so he only saw like the tip of one. From what little he saw, he did not see any tangible damage dealt.
There's no fingertip lying on the ground at the
No.
base of the door. When I hear, I'm sorry guys, but I'm done pussyfooting around here. I'm going to take a step back. The fingers that are reaching around the corner that Pigeon indicates, I'm going to take the pistol and I'm going to shoot one of the digits up on the window.
At the sound of the gunshot, some of the men yelp, and Pigeon hears Elki cover his ears. And you can see that where you shot, the not only does your casing hit the floor, but also there's like a cracking noise as after a moment the window that had been being like slowly slid open is struck from outside and just comes like sailing into the room, knocked clean off its hinges, and falls straight down to the floor nearby.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you can do a follow-up to this.
Okay, is anything coming through the window then?
You can see that as soon as the window is knocked off, what look like a set of long, thin black streamers come slowly descending down into the room.
All right, I'm going to yell to Pigeon and Ajax, y'all get the boy out of here. I'm going to try and draw this thing away. And I'm going to open the door that is more or less in front of me. I'm going to step outside and shoot at this thing. If I can see it up at the window up above, I'm going to shoot at it from outside the barn.
Sure. So first of all, to get out the main barn door, you'll have to take off the bar lock. Are you okay doing so?
I think if it's okay, at this point, Pigeon might already be moving in that direction.
Yep.
And he just sort of, with his one strength, throws the bar lock off.
Yep. As Pigeon throws open the bar lock, Ajax, immediate follow-ups that you would like to take after Sloan has fired. Announce this. He's moving towards the door. Pigeon is removing the bar lock from the door.
As they've done this, I'm stepping to the side where those streamers are coming down, and I'm swinging on them to try and see if I can cut them.
Absolutely. You can see that at the end of each streamer is a gold coin. And as you cut, the gold coins kind of drop to the ground with dull clunks. You hear, like, again, yelps of alarm from the men as you leap in with your sword. And you can hear them yelling, Elki, behind us, lads, behind us! But as the gold thumps to the ground, you hear some of the men saying, what is... gold? How did that get in here? And what are those awful things? One of them yells over to you, Tall man, what is going on? What is that?
It's the evil trying to trick you.
And he says, well, it's doing a terrible job. I can tell it's attached to something.
So as they've gotten the door open, is the door open as
the door is being pulled open as this is happening?
Okay, after I cut, I'm going to look back to the group and say, you lot, follow us. And then start making my way out the door. As
you do so, they nod. A few of them have managed to grab what was handy, pitchforks and barn axes and things like that. Nice. And they, like, putting Elki in the middle of them, they go, like, hurrying towards the door. Sloan is the first out the door and can quickly swing around to look up towards the roof of the house. And as he does so, he can see a large shape moving from where the window is on the outside up towards the roof of the house to try to get out of sight again. What does he want to do?
I'm opening up on him.
Yep.
The pistol's what I have in my hand. Not enough time for lining up trick shot or anything like that. I'm just unloading as fast as I can at this thing.
Yep. 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot. And you notice too, a few of your hits cause little bits of something to go flying off it. So you can clearly see that you've struck its body in several places. And you can even see some of the pieces of it come raining down towards you as it does so. Just little, like, flecks, so to speak. They almost look like leaves for a moment, but as they get closer, you can see it's bits of cloth and fluff. Now, as you are shooting, Pigeon, actions that you would like to take as Sloan is getting into position and shooting up towards the roof of the barn.
Pigeon is going to usher the... his focus is Elki. Elki is currently being shielded by the workers, so he's ushering them out and sticking close to them. He's also attempting to try to figure out to what degree the workers are able to see the Bairnsnag and sort of pay attention to it. So especially when Ajax cut the Bairnsnag, did they seem to notice the coin and the bits of cloth then, or did they have or were they aware of those coming down the whole time, right?
It's not clear because Pigeon was focused on other things, so he'd have to actually ask them.
Okay. Then I think for now he's just going to devote a piece of his attention to trying to figure out how useful the workers will be for helping to protect Elki, if they'll be able to even see the threat coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, currently they're scrambling out of the barn, looking over their shoulders wildly, and trying to keep the boy between the group of them. Ajax, actions you would like to take after barking for the men to get out?
I'm going to head straight out the door and try and get, I don't know, 10, 15 feet in between me and Sloan, so I'm going to move a little bit further out into the courtyard, beckon for the men with or not the courtyard, but onto the road, and then beckon for the men, Elki and Pigeon, to kind of gather near me. So there's some distance between us and the barn, but I'm still looking up to see where this thing's gone.
Absolutely. And as you guys are looking, Sloan would be the first to notice it, but it becomes pretty obvious moments thereafter. Off of the top of the barn goes wafting what looks like a great black sheet that kind of billows up into the air, clearly caught by the wind. Actions that you'd like to take upon seeing this, Sloan has first.
Sloan is still, he's using, he's conjuring bullets, and he's tracking this thing and blasting away at it as it goes flying off the top of the roof.
Absolutely. Sloan just tracks the sheet and fires into the air. And he can see that his shots put little pinpricks in it, but they don't have nearly the same like bursting effect that of when he hit the more massive body. The sheet continues to drift off up into the air, going higher and higher like a kite off of its string. Any immediate follow-ups from Pigeon or from Ajax? I should note, the workmen are watching the great billowing sheet as it flies.
Cool. Go ahead.
No, after you.
No, I was mostly using that as a space filler while I thought. Go ahead.
Upon noticing this, I'm going to immediately look at the workers and ask them, can you see it? Can you see what this thing is?
One of them says, looks like my mother's nightgown.
Have any of you used weapons before?
One of them says, I was in the army, but I was a cook.
What were you trained with?
A ladle? I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And then I'm going to immediately return my attention to the sheet flying.
Another one says, I mean, you know, how hard can a weapon be? You swing it and something gets hit, yeah?
As I'm watching, I say, excellent point. You're right there.
The great sheet is drifting off up into the sky further and further away to the point that it's, looking much, much smaller. But as it crosses the moon, it stops moving and becomes perfectly circular, and the night goes dark.
Pigeon is gonna. I assume Sloan is still carrying the lantern, right?
Sloan has been carrying the lantern, but Pigeon, actions for you before I get over to Sloan, who has been consistently shooting at this thing while it's been in range.
Pigeon is gonna leap for Sloan, and specifically for the lantern, he's gonna scrabble for it, immediately light it.
Absolutely. Sloan, you would notice that as soon as this great sheet covers the moon, your shots cause great shafts of moonlight to come through, as though the moon were being covered by kind of a crappily made colander. And so there is some light, but it is dramatically darker than before, and the light comes in these little pools. Even though you only made teeny bullet holes, the great distance magnifies those out to spotlight sized by the time they touch the ground.
Okay, does the is the sheet, for lack of a better term, has it stopped moving? Is it
stops moving perfectly and covers the moon?
I'm gonna continue shooting. I'm gonna have to leave it to the other two to come up with a solution for getting away from this spot.
As Sloan fires off towards the moon, shot after shot, he notices that even though when it was going high, he kept putting little teeny holes in it. At this point, though, after a few shots, it's clear that he is too far away for his bullets to land.
I will quickly teleport my rifle into my hands as I holster my pistol, and I'll start opening up with the rifle instead.
And this time, you start putting holes in it again. And you can see that each time you do, another little spotlight of light opens up, casting a beam of moonlight down towards the ground where you guys are.
As I'm doing that, I'm going to shout out, "We need a plan, gentlemen," as I'm shooting.
What's the closest shaft of moonlight to where we are right now?
There's one 2 paces away from where the majority of the group is.
Okay.
So these shafts of moonlight, are they staying, or I assume that they sort of go away after a while?
They do not go away after a while.
Ah, okay.
So Ajax, what would you like to do?
How big is the shaft of moonlight? How big are we talking?
By the time they hit the ground, they vary in size from the size of like a stage spotlight to the size of like a family sitting room.
Okay, how big is the one that's closest to us?
Midway between the two.
Okay, I look back at the workers and Elki and I say, okay, get the boy into the moonlight.
And they quickly hurry him over. Come on, lad. Come on, lad. It'll be all right. And as they get over into the pool of moonlight, Ajax, what would you like to do? Again, the light is very low, restricting visibility dramatically from where it was, but you still have some.
I'm going to take a quick sweep back towards the barn, look for any movement, anything that I can see up there that seems
You see
abnormal.
movement on the roof of the barn.
Okay. Does it seem like it's coming towards us, or does it just more kind of hanging out up there for the time being?
How would I describe it? It looks kind of billowing, almost. Not sheet billowing, that's the wrong word for it. It would be more like, imagine that.
Okay.
But more flat to the barn.
Okay. I point this out to Pigeon. Sloan's busy, but I indicate this to Pigeon to make sure he can see it as well.
Pigeon, actions from you leading up to this point.
So do I have the lantern lit?
Yes, you do. After fiddling with the flint for a bit.
Yep. He's going to shove it into the hands of one of the workers and say, just keep things well lit.
The worker fumbles with it for a moment, but then brings it up high.
And then he's going to pull out the judge, which is his big hand and a half size hammer.
Yeah.
Wooden mallet, basically. And he's gonna start. He's gonna start shouting out at and he's focused a little more on this sort of shape on top of the barn, but he's shouting it more generally as well. Almost as if he's playing to an audience that doesn't exist, you know? Like we're in the middle of a coliseum and I think my enemy's over there, but I'm shouting to the whole stadium, and he's going to start goading it and challenging it in the sense he's going to say things like, taker of children, now you face me, a defender of them, and playing up the whole, like, I'm a clown, I'm a friend, I'm a jester, I'm a friend to children, I make them happy, just sort of trying to sort of goad it into whatever sort of equivalent to the human emotion of, like, screw you.
Now, I'm going to give you a moment to think a little more about the specific wording of what you want to say, because that is very important for use of this ability. And I'm going to ask you to describe the ability in short when you use it as well. But as Pigeon starts to call out up to the top of the barn, follow-up actions from Sloan. You have put a couple more holes in the cover on the moon, but you do hear the yelling of Pigeon behind you with his hammer now out. What would you like to do?
Okay, Sloan's probably still not aware that there's anything on top of the barn.
Mm-hmm.
Does it appear to Sloan that the rifle shots are having any appreciable effect? Or is this just kind of throwing more after the same?
It's putting more holes in the cover on the moon, which is allowing incrementally more light in, but each individual shaft of light only illuminates a small portion of the entire field.
It's negligible. Okay, as I'm going to continue shooting because that's the only thing that I know is an action that's having some sort of consequence, no matter how small. But I want to yell to the men as I'm taking those shots. Maybe the shots slow down a bit. I want to yell to the workers, can you remember anything about where you might have seen that blanket? Boom, boom, boom.
Yep, absolutely. And as you're yelling, one of them yells back, we're trying! Hard to remember with all this nonsense going about.
You might have realized that we're under a bit of a time crunch here. Think harder, and I'm going to keep shooting.
You hear the workers kind of like muttering to themselves, but you can hear the current of fear that ripples through it as they do so. And you hear Elki kind of like pressing them.
Come on, guys. This is really important. Was it in the building? Was it where you guys sleep? In the dorms?
No, why would it be in the dorm? You think I still sleep with a security blanket?
This isn't a time for jokes.
Ajax, actions you would like to take as Pigeon is calling out and Sloan is yelling over his shoulder to the workers.
Okay, I realize this will distract the workers even more, but I'm going to use my 2 arms ability. I'm going to kind of look back at them and briefly call, "Prepare yourselves. Don't be afraid. I'm going to give you weapons."
And one of them says, "Well, thank you. That's very kind. Do we get to keep them?" And then Elki scolds him again.
This isn't a time for jokes.
And then for the 2 arms, paired action, make a brief speech calling listeners to action. So without taking my eye too much off of what's sitting on top of the barn, making sure it's still there, kind of look up to the sky and say, "Gods above, bless these our new brothers in arms with what they need to fight this horrible evil." And then hopefully they'll get, I'm guessing, a spear, maybe some leather armor.
That's what you're going for? Spear and leathers?
Something simple
Sure.
that they can figure out how to use, but will still protect them. Maybe a shield if I can swing that as well.
Sure. You hear gasps from behind you, and you hear the clatter of pitchforks and like barn hammers dropping to the ground. And as you look over, you can see that each of them has gained like a formational lance. They have a cuirass of some kind that goes down to the top of their legs. And they each also have a round shield. You can see them looking at each other with their hands kind of gripping the new weapons, looking surprised. More than surprised, shocked.
Shout back, "They're easy to use. If you see something bad, poke it." And then keep on looking back up at the top of the barn to make sure it's not moving.
And as you do so, you hear them kind of like chattering with each other as they start trying to get into something resembling a formation, saying, "Between us, lad. Keep the shield between yourself and the thing, yeah?"
Thank you. I never would have guessed that by myself.
And as they are doing so, any follow-ups from Ajax with 2 arms activated?
No, just keeping an eye on what's going on top of the barn. If Sloan obviously hasn't seen it, I'll yell out to him, "It's still on the barn."
Yep. Sloan, now hearing that before I jump to Pigeon, what would you like to do?
I'll just pivot and I'll start shooting at the thing on top of the barn.
As you look towards the thing on top of the barn, this strange kind of like squirming mass, the next couple shots, when they hit it, you can see little bits fluff off of it, and they look again like pieces of cloth, most likely. And you can see that the thing, rather than like ducking low or anything like that, raises up and becomes much bigger on top of the barn. It's actually quite huge. You can see that it kind of fans itself out almost like a peacock tail, though even so, with the darkness and its strange shifting nature, it's almost impossible to make out exactly what it looks like. You can for now imagine a set of interlaced hands like this. But it is very large. Like each half of it is the size of a barn door by itself. And as it kind of flares out like that, you guys hear gasps and sounds of complete alarm from the workers behind, who start shuffling backwards with Elki among them, saying, "What is that thing?" And all traces of joviality gone from their voices. Sloan, where are you trying to shoot on this?
If this thing is suddenly, is there any obvious like central point? I mean, you had said that it's like this, so I'm looking at something in here. I mean, I'm imagining just for the convenience of it, I'm imagining a bat or a butterfly formation.
Yep.
If there's something in the center of this that looks like it's a bit more solid, that it's a bit more substantial, corporeal, I want to take a shot at that. But what I would like to do is maybe ricochet that shot using trick shot off a portion of maybe the center beam of the barn roof, just to give me a little added emphasis on hitting it.
Absolutely. Before we go further with that, however, Pigeon, let's hear from you. First, tell us about that ability.
Yes, so I'm currently using, it's called Trading Blows. I have to first mock and goad an enemy into making the first attack, at which point they're then locked into a duel with the Bogatir, where neither party can actually sustain any serious wounds. It's certainly a duel of it looks cool, but nobody actually gets hurt. And in the case of Pigeon, this is actually the first time I've gotten to use it. But in the case of Pigeon, it manifests more as a sort of slapstick kind of affair that makes especially the way Pigeon leans into it, goads them into more furiously attacking him, even though neither of them are getting hurt.
And let's hear more of what Pigeon is saying.
Yeah, so in this case, he starts off very aggressive. Taker of children, now you face the fool, your natural and superior opposite. You seek for us to fear you. We do not. See you tremble to face us head on, you cowardly bundle of fabric. Ha! I bet a stiff breeze would send you flying if you weren't clinging so hard to that barn. Is it your terror that lets you cling on so hard? Frankly, you don't even deserve a handkerchief in tribute. I bring joy and courage just by showing up. Work this hard just to make a single 10-year-old shiver a little. In fact, I think his shivers are just from the cold. Here, Elki, wrap yourself in this. He's going to take the blanket and toss it at Elki.
And as Elki grabs the blanket, the great ping of the trick shot goes off as Sloan's bullet bounces off the top of the barn and strikes clean in center mass. And you can see those two interlocked sets of hands break at the middle and go tumbling down the sides of the barn. But as they do so, they each regain themselves and go leaping out towards you. Two different bodies lunging out from the top of the barn, soaring down towards the two of you. Now, or the group of you. The first one is going clean towards Pigeon. It's just, from all you can tell, imagine a bundled mass of blankets with arms sticking out of it. That's all you have to think about in terms of a visual for now, because it's too indistinct to really pick out more. So one of these things is going clean for Pigeon. The other one is less targeted, but is clearly going more towards Sloan, and Ajax is closer to Sloan. Neither of them are going straight for Elki as of now. Immediate actions as they go tumbling and then spring out into action. We'll begin with Sloan here.
Okay, Sloan is going to step actually toward the thing as it makes its way, and I'm going to tell Ajax, you got to take the boy and get out of here. And I'm going to step in front of this tumbling thing, or be below it as it's coming down, and I'm going to move into standoff.
Absolutely. How are you going to be comporting yourself as you move in? Or you still have a gun out, for example?
It's to the point where I had the rifle. It's kind of to the point where this is largely ineffectual. And I think I may have actually made a mistake by splitting this thing into two components. So the rifle is going to be slung back on my back. I'm going to do my reset with the pistol, where I pull it out and do a twirl on my hand and reset it in the holster. And then I'm just going to stand, look at the thing, and give it my tough guy look as it comes toward me, and just try and intimidate it.
Sure. Have you ever seen when an octopus kind of billows itself out and looks more like an umbrella than an octopus for a moment?
Yep.
Imagine it doing that. It kind of splays itself wide, and it billows large, and as it lands, it kind of lands almost directly over Sloan, but imagine it being a tent with him in the doorway of that tent. And you can, inside of this, so to speak, all you can see is a mass of fabric and limbs. That is all you can see. Though many of the limbs have substantial bullet wounds going through them and are spilling out cloth and fluff rather than blood and flesh. You can see that as you land, even though it has hands on the ground that are kind of supporting its tent-like frame, there are more hands that bloom out from the fabric underneath, many of which kind of look like they want to go towards you but pull away or slink away. And sometimes the hands, even though they are more human-like in this form, will kind of, when they pop out, will kind of slap together and congeal into a bigger hand that looks less human-like. And so as you are faced with this writhing tent mass of limbs reaching down towards you and around you, what would you like to do?
It's apparent. Okay, one of the things about standoff, as you know, I have to remain calm and comported as I'm standing here.
Quite.
But what I want to be looking at is this fabric or these chunks of fabric that are making up this creature on the inside. Does it look like I could actually reach out and grab some of those and rip them completely off of the being?
Absolutely. They look like they are only barely attached.
Do I get some sort of an indication behind me that Ajax and the boy, Ajax is taking the boy with our newfound friends out of here, or is that something that's to a point where I can't tell that?
I don't think you'd be able to tell that, mostly because even if you are trying to remain calm and collected, having something of this nature looming over you is going to blank out the world.
Heck yeah. Then what I'm going to be doing is in order to try and buy time for Ajax, I am going to just stand there and maintain my composure for as long as I possibly can before I move to another action.
Absolutely. The hands don't quite get close to touch you, but many of them get close, like with little pinchy fingers going out towards the lapels of your coat or towards the barrel of your rifle, just investigating. Before we go further, however, we're going to check in with Pigeon. What would he like to do as this great bundle of fabric and limbs goes plummeting down towards him?
I think his first move is, as much as is possible with the size of the thing, I think he wants to try and like use the handle of his hammer as sort of a pole vault to like launch himself up so that he can do a really exaggerated like slam down on the thing.
Might and skill stats?
And
reflex
one and
now.
one.
Reflex now that I think about it too.
No reflex.
Cool.
One might, one skill.
In that case, with a big exaggerated like leap up into a bonk, you would see that your hammer kind of slams into the center mass of the thing. It's kind of liquid in the way its body moves, and as such, though you catch a big part of it in a great slam, other like wings of it wrap around and grab you and pull you back into its center mass of its body. Immediate follow-ups as you are brought face first into the cloth.
The whole time he is laughing like a madman. And you know, I think he's going to let go of the hammer.
Yep.
The judge. Tuck himself into a ball and go for a rolling tumble. But he's also going to reach for two of his knives. And he's basically going to sort of cut his way free of the mass, tumble out of the sort of grab, and whirl around and say, "Dragon!" Ah!
And as you do so, you can feel it clawing and ripping at you. You feel it pull out tufts of your hair and try to shred your clothing. But nonetheless, with knives in hand, you roll back outwards, cutting yourself free of the fabric scraps which blow around you as you do so, and land on the ground with that great loud announcement. You can see it rise up in front of you like a wave, limbs reaching wildly, and the judge goes tumbling out onto the ground next to you from where it disgorges it, as it begins to try to slump back over you. In so doing, you can see, I can't do it super well, right? But you know when people can like make like little dog faces and stuff with their hands? Like,
yeah.
That, yeah. You can see that several of the limbs come together in complicated faces, which similarly look towards you and move their fingers, and you can hear a haunting, distant scream emitting from them, but the scream is cut to sound like laughter.
I'm reminded of the pit of hands in the labyrinth.
That's actually a perfect analogy. Yes, like that. Responses from Pigeon as he's being bared down upon.
I need to check something.
Totally fine. I want to check in with Ajax first anyways. So, Ajax, as your two allies are engaged by these two masses, what would you like to do?
Especially after I hear Sloan yell to take Elki out of here, I turn towards our new gaggle of militiamen and say, "Back down the road. Take us somewhere safe."
And one of them says, again, all semblance of joking is completely gone, says, "Where is safe? Where could possibly be safe from that thing?"
"Anywhere that's not here. Go, take the boy. I'll be right behind you."
They go rushing up the road. You hear them yelling to Elki, "Shouldn't we just wake your father?" And another one yelling, "Maybe we can make it to the town? Probably too far." Another one says, Do a carriage? Maybe we could get one of the horses ready, go riding off through the woods. And you hear Elki yelling, no, no, remember the blanket. We need to find it.
And I'm going to take off after them. I don't want to let them get too much distance on me, but
Yep.
I'm keeping an eye behind to make sure that nothing has overcome either of my companions and is chasing us down. But I'm
Absolutely.
staying close, and I'm not going to let them do anything stupid, is also in the forefront of my mind here.
Pigeon, actions as you are being subsumed by the wave of cloth and limbs.
How much time do I have?
Before it hits,
Yeah, like mere moments.
call it 4 seconds.
Okay. That's enough time, I think, to flick a couple of his throwing knives juggling knives, I should say, up into the air. And so he flicks like 3 up, has the other 2 in his hands, and his immediate comment is big scary monster can't even hurt me. And then he breaks into rhyme. He's momentarily juggling. He goes, thrown and caught and juggled and tossed, dancing knives, prancing knives, monster hunting friendly knives. We're not wild, but don't get lost. Guard the boy, shield his joy. Any threat you must destroy. And I'm using...
That's a Samasek if I've ever heard.
Samasek,
Yeah.
absolutely. And except for one of the knives that he keeps hold of, the other 4 are going to leap up into the air, dancing, swirling around, spinning like I think I kind of want them to feel like they have like ballerina energy, even though they only have essentially one leg, right? So maybe they break into pairs. That's what it is. They have pairs. They're sort of ballerina dancing around each other.
For everyone who doesn't know, remind what Samasek does as a bonus to your ability.
Yell commands to an object while throwing it towards its task to briefly animate it to perform a task by itself.
And because of this, the duos of knives you twirl into the air go whizzing off, following after Ajax and Elki and co. Ajax would see them zooming through the air, but he would also see them having come from Pigeon's hands, his eyes being on the battle as this is happening. And obviously they are staying relatively high in the air rather than descending down to a lower level. Pigeon, follow-ups to this as at this point the wave is hitting you.
I mean, absolutely, he's gonna roll with the punches. He's gonna channel his inner acrobat and continue to goad the thing as he cuts his way out again.
Yep. And this time, as it comes down on top of you and grabs you in, you feel yourself at first kind of constricted, but then you can feel the hands starting to grab and pull and rip and like catch at whatever they can. But in return, you two are ripping with your knives. Yep. It's almost like being lost in, like, you ever play the parachute game as a child where like 16 children sit around the big parachute and they fluff it like that? Yeah, it's like being lost in the center of that, but whenever you cut your way through it, there's more parachute. And also, all the children are trying to pinch you at the same time. So it's tough to get out of, is what I'm trying to summarize here. But as you are cutting your way through, still laughing like a maniac, let's jump back over to Sloan and then back over to Ajax. Sloan, you are still being completely encircled by this thing. At this point, like I said before, it's like you're in the entrance of a tent. Now imagine the entrance is slowly closing behind you as its body is kind of like filling in the space that was that is currently to your back. What would you like to do? The limbs are close, but none of them have yet touched you.
Okay, the bits and pieces of cloth that make this tent that I'm enveloped within. These bits and pieces of cloth, are there any of them that look whole? In other words, are there squares, or are these just all torn bits of cloth? Are there any that look like they are what they were originally intended to be?
The majority of them look whole to some degree, but many of them are old and ratty. So it's kind of hard to tell. But there are newer ones amidst them, all of them undeniably children's security blankets of some stripe or another, all of different colors, some with patterns, some with names.
Okay, then Sloan is needing a new course of action. Here we go. I'm going to start grabbing at these bits and pieces. Not the bits and pieces, but he's going to start grabbing the sections that look like they're almost complete or are complete blankets.
Yeah.
He's going to start grabbing for those and seeing if he can rip them off of whatever is holding them from behind, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the main blanket is covered with these tiny blankets. This is how I'm equating it in my head.
Sure.
I'm going to start ripping the small blankets off the main blanket as quickly as I possibly can.
Now, as you begin to rip and tear, your standoff breaks, and immediately it envelops you. You feel limbs grabbing at you. You feel the fabric surrounding you. But also, the hunks that you tore off, each of those, a hand pops out of those as though a snail coming out of its shell to grab at the hand of you that's grabbing at it. And so you are grabbed from all sides. Ajax, from your perspective, Pigeon gets subsumed by this thing, but you can see little bits and pieces of it flying off as he rips his way back out, and you can hear him laughing. Sloan, you could see, was in the mouth of this thing, and then it suddenly just collapses in around him, like a how to describe it? Like a popping balloon almost. Actions from Ajax at this point, you are quite a ways away. You're like 50 to 60 yards away from all of this.
Okay, as we gain more distance, once we have about 60, 70 yards away from this thing, I'm gonna call up to the other people, the workers that we're with, say, slow down. Try and gather everybody up, try and get them to stop, and try and calm the people down a little bit. All is well. We need to keep our heads. We must not let this thing frighten us, because that's exactly what it wants. Kneel down. Look at Elki. Elki, my friend, I need you to think, where else could this blanket possibly be? And after I say that, look around at the workers. Or you. We need to think, where was the last time you saw something resembling this blanket?
As you do so, one of the workers in particular is still panicking. He says, "But look, they're gone! The two men, they're gone!" He points back over to where your companions are fighting. They must be dead. They must be dead and gone.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up and I'm not sure how exactly my character would do this, but use kind of all of the awe-inspiring powers of the mantle that it has, and say, "My friend, they will be fine. They're professionals. We know what we're doing. But you are critical to this now. We must maintain our calm, maintain our presence. Nothing bad will happen while I am here. But we must help Elki. We must save the boy. So I need you to think."
I would like to, if I may, make a luck pitch here. That this is that after he finishes saying this, Pigeon manages to, at least momentarily, cut his way free enough that they can hear his laughter.
I'm actually A-okay with that. Great luck pitch. We're good with that. And after the brief intrusion of Pigeon's laughing...
Which, I also want to add that part of trading blows is that bystander's attention is somewhat drawn to the fight.
Yes. So, thank you. That is a good note. You would also have his whirling knives in the air above your heads as a protective halo. And between all of these things, you see the workers kind of look to each other, and one of them looks back over in the direction of Pigeon, and he says, "He kind of reminds me of a scarecrow, that one."
A very dangerous, very powerful scarecrow, but yes, I would agree.
And as he says that, another one says, hang on, Scarecrow." He looks to the others and says, "We set up a new one recently, didn't we?" And they look to each other a moment, and then one of the men says, "I think we gave that scarecrow a cape."
Was the cape... Did it look like the blanket that Elki once had?
One of them says, "It was white. It was white. And we got it out of the scrap pile, didn't we?"
Well done, my friends. Very well done. Lead us to the Scarecrow. Let's see if this is what we're looking for.
Right.
Well done.
Right. They start going, and then they realize that they turn, and all of them simultaneously stop as they are now facing towards the unharvested grain fields.
All right.
Precisely.
How big are the unharvested grain fields from what I can glean?
Ajax can barely see over the top.
Cool. Okay.
And with the wind going, it makes it very hard for even him to do that. And the dark on top of that.
Okay. I'm gonna turn to the workers. Is the Scarecrow in these grain fields?
Mm-hmm.
How far is it from where we are currently?
It's it's less than a furlong. Little ways in.
For Alexander's uneducated self, how far is that roughly?
Don't worry. I don't think Ajax would know either, so he'd have to clarify.
How far is that? Give me more specific.
Well, they're not... He points over towards the fighting monsters. Them about. We could get there in minutes.
About as far as we are from them currently?
About that, yeah.
All right, my friends. Is entering the grain from here, is that going to be the quickest route, do you think?
Yes.
Then be brave, my friends. You were chosen for a reason. All will be well. We will find the Scarecrow and save the boy. Gather everybody up. Say, remember, as we make our way, keep Elki between yourselves. Protect yourselves and Elki with the shields. I will lead the way. Tell me which direction I need to go.
You can feel them trembling as one of them raises one of their, like, a shielded hand and says, straight that way.
All right, my friends. And I'm going to smile at all of them. All will be well. I need you to be brave. Be brave for Elki.
And as you do so, you hear one of them gasp and take a quick step backwards away from the grain field and points over towards where Sloan was fighting. Because Sloan and the thing fighting him are gone. Speaking of which, let's jump over to Sloan.
Whoops.
Now, as you rip and tear at fabric in your hands, you quickly find your arms restricted by the thing smothering you. What do you want to do?
Well, Sloan's first thought is, well, that didn't turn out quite like I'd hoped. But the only thing that he is, since he's more or less disarmed, for lack of, not trying to be funny, since he's more or less disarmed, he's going to have to try and drop back into standoff. The only way he's going to be able to do that is he's going to have to try and calm his mind, even though this thing is wrapped around him.
Yep.
And try to drop back into that protective mode that he receives from that. That's all he's got right now.
I think it's a fantastic idea, but as you might imagine, it's going to take a good amount of work to get back to that point.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about how he's going to get his mind back there. Things that he is remembering, things that he is thinking of, things that he is trying to do physically, though constricted. If you need a moment to think, we can give you a moment to think.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
When Sloan was a child working at the circus, some of the older children who also, they were the sons of some of the workers at the circus workers who had been there for a long time, they used to torment Sloan. And one of the things that they used to do over and over again was they would wrap him up whenever they were taking down tents for the circus. They would wrap him up inside the canvas of some of the smaller circus tents. And this is something that they did over and over and over. And then when this first started to happen, Sloan would struggle and he would scream and he would cry out and he would beg for them to stop doing it. But these were some mean kids and they never did. And Sloan finally realized that the only way to deal with this was to not give them the pleasure of him crying out and struggling. And so he reached a stage where he was able to completely calm himself and lie there inert as they were trying to wrap him up in this canvas. It was no longer fun for the children to do it, so they stopped doing it. But it took Sloan a long time to reach a stage where he could, even though he felt like he was being smothered, it took him a long time to be able to reach that stage physically and psychologically where he could lie there inert. He's going to draw upon that experience from when he was a child and try and bring that into this current situation to see if he can achieve that same mental status.
I think that's wonderful. That's a beautiful callback. And as you start to calm yourself down, you can feel the ripping, the pinching, reminiscent of kicking and punching. You hear the strange, like you hear a very faint, as though down a long hallway, a faint screaming of a great chorus. But the screams are entirely of terror and fear. But they are, like I described to Pigeon, cut in such a way to make it sound more like laughter. But eventually, you feel your body still wrapped tight. You feel the blows and the gouging and the ripping fade away. And you feel yourself dropped to the ground and dragged. You are still wrapped up. So you can, but your head is just free enough that you can see the dark sky over your head interspersed with columns of moonlight. And then the view is blocked by grain. You are being dragged through the grain fields, almost like imagine a cocoon on a rope.
Gotcha.
What would Sloan like to do from here? His arms and legs are still quite tightly bound by fabric scraps, but he doesn't have limbs actively gouging at him. Although I should note, Sloan's face would be numb from the amount of blows that he had sustained during it. They even pulled out one of his teeth.
Okay. Would I be able to, based on Sloan's previous experience, can he pull shootout in order, this is not to actually do any shooting, but to bring one of his weapons to his hand as he's also focused on standoff?
Typically that will break the standoff. However, if you can, again, it's all in the paired action. If you can find a way to draw a weapon in a way that is not immediately going to draw violence and prime your enemy for aggression, then yes.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
Sorry, go ahead. What?
What are you thinking? Do you need a moment to think and consider it a little more?
I think I have an idea, but yeah, we can move on to somebody else.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. In that case, let's briefly check in with Ajax again before we go on to Pigeon. Ajax would look over and see one fighting monster and the other half, I mean, it's the same thing presumably, but the other half gone. What would he like to do with the workers now once again frozen outside of the grain field, too scared to enter?
Once this happens, and I notice that Sloan has disappeared in some capacity, I'm going to raise my banner up above my head and just say, "Bring me my battle brothers to fight this otherworldly evil. I need your help."
Absolutely.
And hopefully get some of my friends there to.
And briefly describe to me the sort of soldiers you're trying to conjure. Like a very light summary of their armaments, how you know them, their aesthetics, similar.
They were other crew members on my long ship that I've gone on many adventures with over the course of my life. Some I know better than others, but I'm picturing simple chainmail, probably a one-handed sword, some sort of round shield, a helmet, same kind of blazon that I'm wearing, a wolf sigil in the middle of a blue coat.
Absolutely. And as you bring your banner forth, you can hear the clattering of their chainmail as they step ethereally out onto the area around you before becoming tangible. You hear one of them say, "It's a cold place here, sir." And another say, "What evil do we face?"
"We face the Bairnsnag. We must protect this boy, Elki. Thank you for coming, my brothers." And I turn and I'll look at the workers and say, "These men are here to help us. They will help protect. But be inspired by their bravery. You are like them."
And as the workers watch, your soldiers step out among them, and one of them calls over his shoulder to you, says, Ajax, sir, commands, to what direction do we march?
Into the fields. We must find the scarecrow. These men can lead us there.
Yes, sir. He takes his one-handed lopper and begins to start whacking his way through the grain field to trim the eye line, so to speak. And as he does so, the soldiers begin to timidly move forwards, with one of your soldiers saying, Spears out. We don't know what's going to be jumping out from us, do we?
And I'm going to do the same thing and start cutting through the grain with my sword.
Yep.
We're just going to start making our way in.
With your soldiers making a ring around the workers and them making a ring around Elki, you start pushing out into the grain field. You hear the wind blowing and the leaves continue to dance away through the air. But now the grain that you hack down also gets whisked off on the eddies of wind and continues to blow detritus around in the sky. The moon is still covered, but Sloan's many little pockets of light that he shot into it dot the grain field like oases as you carve your way through it. Pigeon.
I'll also mention that one of the workers is holding the lantern.
Yes, that is definitely true. And also, you have the flying knives scanning the perimeter from above your heads, again, like a halo. Pigeon, actions that you would like to take from here.
So at this point, Pigeon is going to start. So he's holding one of his knives. He's going to start as much as he can carving like cute little pictures when he cuts.
Yep.
And he'll like make little frowny faces, or he'll like carve a star or a heart, and at the same time he's gonna up the taunting. Come on! This much for me, come on! I could do this. I could do this with one hand behind my back. In fact, I think I will.
And as
You're gonna need more mass than that.
And as he does so, the one hand he puts behind his back is pinned there by a couple of limbs that reach out. And also, Pigeon is belted across the face by a full open hand slap that leaves a great red mark on his face, but only on half of it because of the helmet protecting the upper.
Basically, he's trying to taunt it into committing more bits of itself to this particular fight and not elsewhere.
But Pigeon feels, obviously, the blows are not substantial enough to do any serious damage, but he feels himself getting black and blue. He is pinched in some places, he has hair ripped out in others, he has his clothing shredded in others, he has his arm tried to be pinned, they try to get at his knives and disarm his knives from his hands, they try to reach into his mouth and pull his mouth open. The limbs get everywhere, like water when you are diving.
You know what? I think so. He's going to. You know what might make you feel better? And he's gonna, using his strength, he's gonna pull his back arm free, reach into a pocket, and start pulling out like children's toys and candy, and start sort of tossing it into the mass as he continues to. Mostly at this point, he knows that this is. Even with trading blows, this is a losing fight. But he's playing it like it's not. He's playing it like this is gonna, like he could do this. Captain America, I could do this all day, except more mockingly.
Now, you throwing out little toys and gifts, actually, for the first time since the fight, causes it to pull away from you and get distracted picking them up. You can see that the little limbs grab things and swirl them away up into the mass of cloth, and yet you are still, enveloped. You're just not quite as enveloped as you were previously. In this window, what do you want to do?
I think he will start to cut a way out and turn the fight into. I think he's going to shift towards a more evasive bullfighter kind of angle of. Trying to goad it and dodge it.
Yeah, so cutting out onto the road, it quickly, having collected the toys, begins to, shuffle its way towards you again. Its limbs pulling itself across the ground and its body bunching up like a slug but moving fast like water. What do you want to do?
I would like to luck pitch that there is a tree stump nearby.
Luck stat?
1.
1 luck stat. I'm going to say... I'm going to say yes, but it's not nearby. It's like 20
Okay.
paces away. Is that okay?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. And so focusing on, let me check. So continuing to sort of angle into the goading and the like, come on, I'm still standing. Look at you, you're all women's. And try to leverage that goading to cause it to attack as he's shifting direction, right? So rather than reacting, he's trying to be proactive and force or compel, I should say, compel the monster to leap at him when he's already started moving to shift his direction so that he can more easily dodge heading towards the stump.
Sure. Vigor stat?
0.
Okay, cool. So that gives me an idea of how quickly you're able to back away from it. As you do so, you can see its body bunch up, and it doesn't like make wings, right? It's as though the arms kind of briefly come together in a wing-like fashion, splaying out the cloth, as it does kind of a single beat of its pseudo wings to leap towards you in another great mass, kind of like when it jumped off the top of the barn to initiate the fight. Obviously, Pigeon is not going to be able to get out of the way beautifully, but is this like you're willing to hit the deck to get out of the way, or do you want to make sure you always stay on your feet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially because with his tumbling background, it's easy for him to turn a panicked dive into a graceful, back onto his feet roll.
Yep, absolutely. And as you come out of this dive, however, you hear for the first time in a while something behind you. The door of the workers' compound, which you are kind of near, slam open, and lanterns in the distance as people come out. You're like, "What's that noise?"
Combining both a taunt and answering these people, Pigeon will shout over his shoulder, "The clown fight the monster! And we're winning!"
And as you do so, the Bairnsnag bunches up again to leap towards you once more. You're almost at the stump.
So with his intention with this dodge is going to be to dodge in such a way that he's able to stick his knife out towards the mass, so that the Bairnsnag's own momentum pulls it past the knife, and obviously it still won't hurt a lot because trading blows, but like it has the impact of a more serious hurt on the composure of the monster.
Quite, yes.
And assuming that Pigeon is able to reach the stump becomes something of a. If you've ever played or watched anybody play Dead by Daylight, one of the mechanics in there is that you can leap over like windowsills faster than the killer, and so that the sort of ability to use it as like a vault to more rapidly sort of maneuver around and sometimes push himself up against the base of it in ways that allow him to just sort of wriggle and dodge. It's just an extra obstacle.
Yeah. And in this case, as you make this next dodge and rip at it again, its body comes together in a way you haven't seen it do before. Instead of being like a shifting, shuddering mass, it comes up to almost like the shape of a person in a coat, but with a single massive head, which again is of course made of hands. They come together in almost a dog-like shape, kind of like we described before, like that. But then other hands come from within the dog's jaws to make actually look like decent-looking teeth. And the head itself is as big as your entire body. But more than that, as these hands come together to form this great dog-like jowls, set of jowls, you can see that they kind of congeal together to make it actually look very much like a great dog-like head with eerie, floppy teeth, each of which has fingers. As this strange thing kind of like looms over you in this much taller form, a great tongue spills out of it, also made of limbs. And you can see that at the base of the great the great tongue is another stuffed animal. It brings out the long, creepy arm tongue and proffers the stuffed animal to you.
Do I recognize anything about the stuffed animal? Does it look familiar?
Yes, it's actually one of the ones that you noticed earlier in the room.
Dang. You know what? I have a silly thought here.
That's new.
Coming to a stop with sort of a spin on the stump, Pigeon will sort of cock his head and go, "A gift? For me? I accept," and he will reach out to take the stuffed animal.
Yep. And it lets go of the stuffed animal, leaving it in your hands, and pulls its strange tongue back into its mouth. What do you want to do?
Was Pigeon able to notice the threads before?
He has never yet seen a thread.
Okay. And how dark is it around here at the moment?
Quite. You are not in a patch of moonlight.
Pigeon will... So how big is the stuffed animal?
It's one of the bigger ones. It's like you would hold it like this.
Okay. So he will tuck it under his arm, the one that's not holding a knife.
Yep.
You know, sort of hold on to it. And he will say, "Well, shall we continue?"
And as you do so, it opens its jaws, and you feel a sudden great force, as though you had been yanked by a car tow cable. As you go stuffy first towards its jaws, your arm and body glued to the stuffed animal as you go sailing up into its mouth.
Fantastic.
Oh, no.
Knife first.
At this
Laughing
point,
the whole way.
we're going to jump back over to Sloan and then to Ajax.
Oh boy. Okay. As now you said that Sloan is being pulled through the wheat field or
Yep.
the grain field, but his face is clear to the sky.
His eyes have like a couple of faint gaps that they can see through.
Okay, what about his mouth?
His mouth, you can move it. You don't really know if there's like wrapping right above it. Actually, you probably would because the sound of your breath. Yeah, in that case, it would be a similar sensation where it's covered, but there's a few small gaps.
Okay. So, as Sloan is being pulled through this grain field, he is going to be using that again, going back to the noticing patterns that he does on almost on a second nature basis. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to feel as he's being pulled back and forth, because I have to imagine that he's, it's moving around like this. There's, a lot of, bumping around. And he's going to try to determine whether or not there is one side of whatever's holding him that is stronger than another.
Oh.
So, something that almost like a hand has gripped him and is pulling him through, as though some of those fingers don't quite meet as exactly. He's trying to determine that as he's being pulled along. Is that something that he can do?
Yes, absolutely. Especially because he has a little bit to think about it, and not much else to do. And because of that, he would realize that, like I described, it's like you're a cocoon on a rope. But
Right.
The more you feel it, the more you realize it's not a rope. It's many, many arms and hands that are grabbing you by the feet and pulling you along the ground. And of course,
Right.
and these arms and hands go like well up your legs, so that you're kind of being grabbed from many limbs as you're being pulled along. This means that your arms are only being bound by cloth rather than hands.
Okay.
Your feet are grabbed by cloth and hands. Additionally, the cloth and hands, while they're around you, while they're not perfectly symmetrical, on your lower body where the hands are grabbing you, they do seem to be, you don't feel any notable like weak points for wiggle room there. But on your arms area, you feel that your right side is absolutely getting weaker, because as you're being dragged along the ground, the cloth is being disturbed and pulled, because it is going in a mostly right ways angle, meaning that you're kind of rolled on your side in that direction, and the cloth on that side of your body is getting scuffed up more.
Okay, then as I'm being pulled along, I'm going to flex my right arm and see, just barely, and see when I do that if there's a tightening of those cloths on that side.
Yep, absolutely. And with a shift of
Okay.
your arm, there is no tightening.
Oh, there isn't a tightening.
Yep.
Then, okay, what I'm going to do then, and this is a bit of a leap. With shootout, I can bring a weapon to my hand,
Yep.
provided my hand is free, which it is not. What Sloan is going to want to attempt to do is create a distraction in order to be able to free his right hand, his right arm. So I'm going to kind of rock myself a little bit as I'm being dragged along, just enough to try and continue the grating, the abrasion on that right side to try and thin out even more what's holding me on that weakest point. But I don't want to flex my arm so much that it draws attention to what's going on. What I want to do as far as the distraction is, the coins that I have, the ones that I got to be able to draw people's attention. In Sloan's mind, those are actually part of his weapon complement, because what he uses those for is as you may remember from the last adventure, he would flip those up in the air to draw people's attention to them so that he then had a distracted shot at his enemies.
Quite.
What Sloan wants to try and do is, instead of using shootout, and I know this is a leap, and if it doesn't go, I totally get it. Instead of using shootout to teleport a weapon to his hand, he wants to teleport one of those coins to his mouth. Is that a possibility?
Well, with shootout, your paired action is, a big pause with a sudden flurry of motion. Now, obviously, you've had a big pause. Sudden flurry of motion is a little bit harder. How are you going to provide that sudden flurry of motion in such a way that lends itself to getting that coin in your mouth?
Well, this is the way that Sloan is planning this entire thing. Is it's going to have to be almost an instantaneous series of actions. He wants to, I'm just going to lay out what I'm going to try to do all at once. I'm going to try to summon the coin to my mouth, be able to flex my shoulders back to see if I can pull my mouth away from the cloth and other things that are enveloping it, far enough to where I can spit the coin out to try and make whatever this thing is distracted in some form. But at the same time, with that the creature is distracted, I want to be able to apply as much pressure as I possibly can in a burst of energy to try and pop that right arm free to be able to escape as much as I possibly can. So the paired action is one explosive movement that combines summoning the coin, creating space to spitting the coin, and then applying pressure to free my right arm.
Okay, I love the plan. Before we enact it, I'm going to cut to Ajax, and I will also leave you with one thing. Obviously, you have a few slits in the cloth obstructing your mouth, but still, getting a coin directly through that is tricky, unless you use a trick shot. Let's go over to Ajax. Now, you have been carving your way through this grain field for like 30 seconds at this point. You hear the distant yelling and laughing of Pigeon. You hear some other voices. Your soldiers around you murmur brief words of confirmation and encouragement to each other, as well as things like "nothing on this side," or another one saying, "You think it's nearly harvest time for them here? What do you think, boys? You're going to be going back into these fields someday soon." And just trying to lighten the mood, you know what I mean? However, as they are doing so, amidst all of the wind and the blowing of leaves and things about, you see that up ahead the grain has stopped moving, despite the wind staying high. What would you like to do? This is, and I should note, as you notice this, because you are pretty much taking point at this moment, you would also see, with your eyes just able to crest the top of the grain, you would actually see the silhouette of the scarecrow not even 40 paces ahead.
And the still part is between us and the scarecrow. Okay. How many soldiers was I able to conjure?
5, plus the 4 militia.
Okay. Then I'm going to kind of get everyone's attention and have them stop. And then especially to my soldiers, but also to the other people, I'm going to indicate this part of the wheat that's holding still.
Yep.
Once everyone is kind of aware of that, I'm going to gather. Okay, I'm going to gather the 2 soldiers that are close to me. I'm going to indicate that I want them to follow me off to the right.
Yep.
before we leave, I'm going to point to the other 3 soldiers, the militiaman and Elki.
Yep.
Wait. And then move forward in just a second. So I'll even turn around and I'll kind of say that to some of the soldiers in particular, but I want Elki to know the plan as well.
Yep.
And then before myself and the 2 soldiers going with me depart, I'm going to give like Elki a smile, a thumbs up, everything's going to be okay. Then me and my 2 soldiers are going to take off to the right until we're 15, 20 feet away from the part of the wheat that's still. Once we're over there, do we manage to maneuver our way over to that point, kind of not perpendicular? Yeah, I guess perpendicular to where we were initially, without any issue.
A question: are you trying to move as quickly as possible or as quietly as possible?
As quickly as possible. I'm trying to guide this thing towards me.
Sure. In that case, so no cutting of grain, just like pushing through as fast as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, pushing through, maybe with the odd hack to kind of make things shake a little bit and to bring the.
Absolutely. So not only do you manage to do so, but you can also see kind of like you see with large fish that are about to crest the surface. You can see almost like a bulge in the grain as it starts to move towards you.
Okay. Once we get over to that point, I'm going to, with my 2 soldiers that are with me, I'm going to use the Gare Thinks action, and I'm just going to start banging my sword against my armor, have them doing the same, screaming, "Come over here, you big fotsy!" and just trying to get all of its attention over towards us. And then hopefully they'll start to move towards the scarecrow.
Your soldiers take up the cry as well, but as they do so, it rises up out of the grain in front of you again like a wave. You can see that in the form that it takes coming towards you, it is more similar to what I just described to Pigeon. It is tall, it has an almost canid head made of hands, it has a long hand-like tongue, and it has awful hand-like teeth. So as it rises in this form, kind of like looming up out of the grain field and opening its jaws with its tongue whipping out, your 2 soldiers like continue to yell as they kind of hug in on either side of you. What would you like to do as its big head begins to plunge down towards you into the ground?
As it starts coming down towards me, I'm just bringing my sword over the top to try and connect with it as it's heading down towards us.
Absolutely. 1 or 2 hands?
I'm going to do 2.
Yep.
Both hands straight over the top.
You like cleave into where the nose would be on an actual dog, right? And you can actually see like the fluff and the strings go like flying as you cleave through the fabric. But as you do so, it begins to envelop you on either side, and your soldiers as well. After this initial cleave, your sword goes clean through. What do you want to do with your sword now down by your side as it is falling around you?
Bringing it back up to just stab into what's starting to envelop me.
Absolutely. And it's at this point that you hear that faint screaming noise chopped into laughter that I described before. And as you strike in, you feel your sword hit true. It clearly is impacted center mass, but the thing is still moving around you. You feel its awful limbs trying to rip at your skin and peel off your armor. What do you want to do?
After I hit something, I'm just bringing it out and bringing it back in, still yelling the entire time, trying to maintain its attention as best I possibly can.
And as you do so, it pulls back. Clearly, the Garethynx's intimidation keeping it at least somewhat more at bay than it was with either of the other 2. You can see that your 2 soldiers, one has a helmet missing, the other lost his sword and is pulling a dagger instead. But also they have like awful gouges in their faces and hair, like bits of hair ripped out and things like that. As they pull in aside you again, both of them still trying to yell through their panting. And you can see that it's kind of congealing itself back together and forming up into that great dog-like height. Though you can see that the cleft you carved in its face is still there as it reforms. However, Sloan, actions you would like to take from here.
Okay, well, somewhere out of the blue, I got the idea that maybe I should try and use trick shot with this idea.
Out of the blue is a Thunderbird ability.
maybe there's a Thunderbird hanging around someplace that's trying to help out. So here's what I'm going to try and do. If I can, as I do all of those actions that I described to you earlier, my goal is to spit the coin out through one of the gaps, this tiny little gaps that are around Sloan's mouth.
Yep.
What I'm going to do for the trick shot part of that is I'm going to try and ricochet that coin off of my teeth, like my lower teeth.
Yep.
So when I make that spit, I'm putting that energy for trick shot into it, hitting my lower teeth. Maybe I'll lose a couple teeth. It'll just give me character. But that's my goal, to get the thing out into the area outside of where I am and hopefully distract this creature again, again, so that I can make a move to break free on my right arm.
Absolutely. And with a ping off your teeth, it hurts, but it's not going to take any teeth out. The coin goes spinning out and slots neatly through two of the slits that are covering your face. And as it does so, this is after you did that great wrench with your body. It pings up into the air, and you said you wanted to like follow it up with an immediate other wrench to try to get your arm free, yeah?
It's almost instantaneously. Yeah, almost exactly the same time.
Yep, absolutely. And as you do so, you hear a ripping noise as old blankets are torn, and you get your arm free and your pistol in hand. Immediate follow-ups as you do so. You are still like half captured, like your left arm is still bound, your face is still like in many ways obscured, your legs are still caught, but you roughly know where center mass is on this thing based on how it's been dragging you.
Then I use my, I'm going to go continue with this, and I'm going to unload my pistol straight into the center of mass on this thing, while at the same time trying to keep focused on any of those weak spots so that I can break those to try and get away.
Yep. As you do so, you hear a clattering and a yelling of soldiers, though your shots are also quite loud in your ears as you're trying to like push your way out through some of the weakness, like the weakened cloth that you've done. You managed to get your left hand free, but also you can feel your legs being kind of reeled in by its hands. So what was first grabbing mostly at your ankles is now making its way up to your knees as it pulls you more in towards its body. But you can also feel a small, like a rain of fluff and fabric as your bullets start ripping into its body. Immediate follow-ups from you as you unload your revolver into it.
Okay, then as this is happening and I'm feeling myself being, my feet or my lower legs are obviously locked into this thing still. As it is pulling me toward it, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to try and bring myself up to both feet and go with the pull that's yanking on my lower body.
Yep.
I'm going to go actually with it, and then I'm going to try and vault myself over the center of that, the strength of that pull to the far side to see if any added momentum might end up helping me to break the grip that it has on my lower legs.
Very consequential stat check here. Reflex?
Reflexes 2.
Okay. Wow. That was really interesting. Now, in that case, as you leap up, you actually manage to get yourself into almost a standing position, and then kind of, you said you want to like catapult your momentum forwards, right?
What I want to do is, okay, I'm being pulled
On your
this
back.
way.
Yep.
Right. What I want to do is get up into a crouched position and launch myself in the same direction that I'm being pulled. And then just for an added bit of flair, I want to do a flip in the air as I go past the center of strength of this thing to see if I can snap or at least really, really loosen its hold on me.
The reflex is going to absolutely allow you to pull off stage one, getting into the spring position and then launching yourself forwards. And as you like sail up like across its body, you kind of land on what would be its shoulder because it's standing in a human-like form at the moment. And Ajax would see Sloan's head kind of burst out over the top of the creature that he's facing down, with Sloan managing to get like one arm out. So Sloan, imagine this thing as being like roughly twice to 2.5 times the size of a human at the moment, and you've gotten like onto one shoulder.
Okay.
Your legs are still somewhat attached, but the hands are scrabbling and are having trouble holding on. Immediate follow-ups from Sloan after he catapults up. He can immediately see Ajax down below with 2 soldiers around a bunch of like destroyed grain where their initial brawl started to take place.
Okay, so I'm mounted on this thing's shoulder at the moment, correct? Yep. But it doesn't feel like I've loosened the hold on my lower limbs.
You have, but it is not gone. Like the hands are scrabbling rather than holding tight.
Is there anything? Okay, is there something that I can discern as being almost a neck to the creature?
It's a great question. The head almost just kind of blooms out of the mass of blankets that rise up. You could determine where a neck would be on an equivalent human, but you don't see a discernible neck on it.
Okay, but what I'm looking for is not so much the neck itself, but anything that might be around that, like maybe a coiled blanket or a rolled blanket that might be around what would be the equivalent of the neck of the creature. Is there anything like that?
Luck stat.
So moving on to the next item that I'm going to try and do. Okay, if I am pulled up and I'm actually on the shoulder of the thing, is there any way that I can use momentum to continue forward and hopefully it has a grip on me? Hopefully the grip that it has will follow whichever direction I'm going.
Well, what you can do if nothing else is you have like one arm over it, getting another arm over and like kicking with your feet while you try to pull yourself up, even if it doesn't sustain full momentum because you kind of came to a stop when you hit the shoulder, is going to like at least get you more over the shoulder.
Okay, but instead of doing that, then if the thing, and I'm not taking into account how tall it is, if I'm up mounted on its shoulder, what I'm going to do is try and grab onto the creature and put my feet against whatever is lower on its body. Like I guess the equivalent would be like mid-lower back.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab onto it, flex my legs again, and try and push myself off in the opposite direction. Does that make sense?
So back away from Ajax.
Back away from, yes.
Aha. Okay. In that case, much like how you to get out of a grip, kind of pull like that, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I'm envisioning what you're doing. Excellent. And so having now redirected your momentum twice with a great push off its back, you feel the hands on your feet break free. And you go sailing backwards into the grain. Now, this is going to be a bit of a hard landing on your back, but with 2 reflex, it's not going to do more than knock the wind out of you briefly. Immediate follow-ups after the and catching your breath.
Did I happen to see Ajax?
Yes, you did. You saw him right in front of the creature.
So I know that my companions are at least one of my companions is pretty close by.
Exactly.
Okay, now from where I've launched myself, Ajax is on the opposite side of the creature from me. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then the first thing that Sloan would end up doing is he's going to have to find out where the heck he is. That's going to be his first order of business.
Yep, absolutely. Getting to your feet, or are you going to try to stay low?
Actually, it's going to be scrabbling on my hands and knees to get as far away from the creature as I possibly can.
Yep.
That's my first action.
Ajax, immediate follow-up from you before we jump over to Pigeon. You have just seen Sloan's head appear, gets another arm up, and then he flings himself backwards and goes out of sight again.
As soon as I see that and know that somebody else is here, I'm going to rally my men and just charge in and start stabbing this thing, really going to town on it.
Absolutely. It recoils from you, and you can feel its limbs, rather than trying to grab you, the limbs that burst out of its cloth try to push you away, like getting on your face and shoving you backwards, as it starts to skitter backwards through the grain field as well. Your soldiers yell, "It's afraid!" and begin hacking in at it with their great, like, machete-like weapons. What would you like to do as you begin to drive it back? Just continue to press your advantage and hack at it?
I don't want to press it too far because I don't want to get too close to the scarecrow, but I want to make sure that it's still off balance and still kind of concerned about what's going on. So anything that's coming out at me, my focus is not driving forward, but just forward enough to keep it off balance. And I'm just trying to hack anything that comes down off of it with the odd stab at the main body as well.
Absolutely. Now, as you are doing so, its great, like, its tall self that it had formed up begins to kind of crumple down into a much smaller version as it recoils backwards, much less defined without a specific head or anything like that. And also, some of the limbs that come out, instead of trying to push at you or grab at you, especially to your soldiers, start to come out offering gold. It offers coins as it's being pushed backwards.
I'm probably not concerned about my soldiers being dissuaded or persuaded by this, but I still yell out, "Ignore it! It's trying to trick you! Fight, boys!"
And you can see that one of them says, "Shame! Would have enjoyed some plunder out of this." as it continues to hack away. One of them tries to cut off one of the hands with a coin to see if the coin remains, and of course the coin does not. But as you guys continue to keep it staggered, as to use your words, Sloan, scrabbling backwards, you actually bump into someone who is in the green field. Who's that? And then a spear stabs into the ground next to you.
Do I recognize this person as being one of the farmers?
Yes,
or
you
the
do.
Certain workers.
The farmhands, yeah.
If I can remember his name, I will say really quickly, so-and-so, it's me. It's me. Where are we? What's happening?
He says, "We thought you were dead. We're nearly at the scarecrow.
What scarecrow? What are you talking about?
We think that's where the blanket is."
All right, well, let's get to it. Quick, show the way. Come on, let's go.
He hauls you up onto your feet and says, "We thought you were dead. You were just gone."
Don't worry about that. We've got to get to this scarecrow thing. Come on, where is it? Where is it?
And Pigeon, over to you.
Yes.
As you are pulled into the Great Maw, what would you like to do?
So as I'm pulled in, I actually want to try and catch the helmet so that it gets pulled off of my head.
Yes. That's great.
And then I have a bit of an ambitious piece of energy work that I want to do here. Because, so, Friend in Need is anchored on a gift, usually given in gratitude for a favor. Now, the stuffy was neither given in gratitude nor in return for a favor. In fact, it was a trap. But Pigeon treated it like it was a gift. And I want to try and so the actions Pigeon is going to take are immediately having had his helmet pulled off, being pulled into this bundle of fabric of you might even say children's blankets. He's going to sort of out loud voice, "Well, seems I lost. You must be as tired as I am, friend. Good thing I'm bundled up in blankets and nice and warm." And he's going to clutch the stuffy even closer to himself and sort of try to roll over. And the energy work that I want to do is that because this stuffy is kind of a gift, but definitely connected to the Bairnsnag, that he's able to at least get some mild power out of Friend in Need, turning it into essentially a voodoo doll and induce, if not outright sleep, a sort of sluggishness and a sleepiness into the entire Bairnsnag.
Describe how Friend in Need normally works as an ability.
So normally, after doing a favor for someone, and when they express gratitude for that favor, you pitch them giving you a gift. Usually, it should be a mundane item. So, for instance, the example given is you could save a king's life and then accept a single coin, which you could then later. So then later you can call back to that gift to transform it into something more powerful, even if there's sufficient gratitude and power behind it, into something more powerful than gear. And the example with the coin with the king's face on it is that it could turn into a mighty shield. And so typically it scales in power relative to the magnitude of the original favor and the poignancy of the target's expressed gratitude. So I don't have a lot to work with here. Most of what I'm working with in the energy work here is Pigeon really leaning into the this is a childhood monster. It follows childhood make believe rules to some extent.
And as you say this, and you feel the stuffy barely changes. A lot of these transformations are a lot more radical than this, but the stuffy barely changes. You just feel it growing more arms. You can hear inside that awful distant screaming sound has been replaced by just like a very faint whimper almost, but like a whimper of a dozen voices that is faint and stilted. And you can see inside of the thing's body, which is now kind of crumpling down to the ground. Limbs are reaching out to you in like begging positions, gives positions.
And Pigeon sort of holds it close in a tight hug, and rolls over and says, "Let's rest. That will be nice for everyone. Let's just rest."
You feel hands trying to pilfer your pockets to get more toys.
Please help yourself to the toys.
And as you can feel, a dozen little hands reaching in and plucking you dry of anything resembling a toy or a treat. You can feel its weight kind of like lay down heavily on you. It's much more like a very heavy weighted blanket at this point.
Yep.
But you can feel that the hands, while they are close about, they are mostly contented with the baubles that you have presented for the moment.
And I think Pigeon is just going to sort of hope that this has extended to all instances of the Bairnsnag. and I think this is pretty much what he's doing until either the mission ends or the ability ends.
And it's at this point, if we jump back over to Ajax, that he would realize something. As the Bairnsnag continues to pull away and continues to offer gifts, you see that the gifts stop being coins and start being children's toys.
This confuses me, and I find it surprising, but it makes no difference. I'm continuing to stab.
And then it tries snacks instead, little biscuits and sweets.
Still hacking, stabbing, driving it down to the ground.
And you can see that it kind of pulls its limbs in, and it covers itself up so that barely any hands are visible, and it starts to scoot backwards quicker than before. As it does so, one of your soldiers says, "Yeah, you run away." He reaches down and picks up one of the toys and says, "My daughter will like this," and pockets it.
I'd be careful with that if I were you. And then just keep driving towards it, kind of chasing it away from wherever it's going to go.
Sloan, in the meantime, you and the group of soldiers push their way up to a small scarecrow. The scarecrow is sticking out just like above the tops of the thing. You can see it has like a little coat on it and a goofy little hat on it, and its little arms sticking out, and it also has a little cape blowing in the wild wind. Sloan's eyes pick out the cape immediately. White yarn with a sheep embroidered on it.
Elki, is that it? And I'm running toward the cape as quickly as I possibly can.
Yep. How do you want to... Are you just going to try to like grab and pull?
I'm going up. I'm just grabbing and pulling, yeah.
Yep. It pops off easily. And Elki says, yes, I recognize it.
I'm going to turn around without saying anything. I'm just going to turn around and run back to the one that Ajax is fighting, because I'm figuring the one that Pigeon is fighting is actually a further distance away.
Oh,
correct?
It's quite a bit further. As you push through the wheat, you're following the sound of Ajax and his soldiers yelling. And then you break into like the great swath through the wheat that they've carved with this thing retreating from them, and you're only a couple paces behind them, still running.
As I'm running up, I'm just going to yell out, "Here, take it, you son of a!" And I'm going to throw the thing at the creature.
And even in its current kind of retreating, groveling state, a limb adjoined to a limb kind of telescopes out, grabs the blanket, and pulls it into the creature's mass. There's a brief moment where it just kind of shudders in place, still cowering away from Ajax.
The first thing that I want to do is find out where Elki is, make sure that he is not, that he's safe, essentially, that he's not being attacked or drawn toward the creature.
Turning around and whipping back is what I'm imagining.
Yep.
And Ajax would see that the Bairnsnag pulls away, extends limbs out into a great set of wings again, and the wind takes it up into the air. It whisks away, almost like the sheet that it sent out to cover the moon, which you can see is sliding off of the moon, kind of like an eclipse leaving totality.
I just kind of watch this happen. There's not much I can do as it flies away.
Pigeon, you would suddenly find that the kind of dank muskiness of its body surrounding you is replaced by fresh, cold, breezy autumn air and moonlight returning. Men are running over to you. You! What was that? What's going on?
So Pigeon is no longer wrapped in it.
No, he still has the stuffy, though.
Oh, okay.
And his pockets have still been picked clean.
Right.
It took all your knives, too, by the way.
Well, it was just the one knife.
There's only one left, yeah.
The other four are still protecting Elki.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know. Anyway, is Pigeon being restrained, or is he able to stand?
No, he just has a group of concerned workers standing over him with lanterns.
Okay, yeah. So he stands up, looks at the stuffy, looks at the nearest worker, says, "I believe this is Elki's." Holds it out to him.
The man takes it, and another one suspiciously says, "And what are you doing here?"
You know what? Believe me if I told you. You ever heard of the Bairnsnag?
No, we're not from around here.
Well, it was after Elki, and I believe it's been appeased.
The farm boy?
Yes.
You're right, I don't believe you. You best get
well,
off the property pretty quick then, before the master finds out.
Of course. And Pigeon's gonna look down. Is the Enclave badge pinging?
As you say this, jumping back over, Ajax, actions you'd like to take as the Bairnsnag flies off.
Go find Elki and make sure that all is well with him.
You and your soldiers quickly follow Sloan through the wheat field, and you rejoin with the 4 militiamen and the other soldiers who are currently watching the Bairnsnag sail off into the night sky with the moon now returning. One of the militiamen says shakily, It's gone?
I think it's gone. Well done, brother. You were brave. You all were.
You see them kind of looking around at each other, small smiles returning. Not too bad. What do you think, Elki boy? Not too bad, eh? And Elki says,
I've seen better showings. Not too bad.
You see that he's holding one of Pigeon's knives, which Samasek has ended on, and he's now just using for self-defense. He looks over towards Sloan and Ajax and says,
It's really gone.
I think it is, son. I think it's wrong. I think it's gone. But whatever you do, don't forget, that thing is real.
Maybe just a bad dream, though?
I wish that were the case. I need to start looking around and trying to find Pigeon, because that's my concern at the moment. I got to find him.
Yeah. Are you going to head out of the grain field?
Yeah, I'm going to ask for the last place that anybody saw him and head in that direction.
By the barn. The workers and Elki go hurrying out of the grain field alongside Sloan. Ajax, would you like to follow?
Yeah, I'll follow, and then if my soldiers, it's probably getting about the time when they have to be released from their summoning.
Yeah.
So I'll give them thank you, men. We'll see you next time.
Well fought battle, sir. And they salute as they vanish, wisping away ethereally. Okay. And as you guys burst out of the grain field, you would see over in now the good light by the workers' compound, Pigeon is standing among a group of men with a stuffed animal slung under his arm. As he this would be at the point where we just got to, and as the group of you finally see each other, you would all feel your Enclave badges ping gently on your chests. Final actions.
Pigeon collects his helmet and his hammer, and he walks over to the rest of the group, and he says, as much as it is a dangerous monster that threatens children, I think it's something of a child itself. Can't help but feel some empathy for it. Anyway. Hang out.
And as Pigeon wisps away in front of you all, The other workers that had come out of the dormitories come hurrying over. What the damn hell is going on here? Sloan, what are you doing? They start blabbing back and forth, and the guys who were alongside said, "You will never believe this. I'm sure we're not going to believe this, but if we don't keep our voices down, the master's going to wake up and we'll all get tanned." As they continue to argue back and forth, any final actions from Ajax and then Sloan?
I just look at Elki. I say, "Well done, lad. You're gonna be all right. Good luck, and thank you for guiding us to the Scarecrow. You did very well." And then just hit the badge and disappear.
Goodbye. As Ajax vanishes. And Sloan, final actions from you.
Sloan's going to kneel down in front of Elki, and he's going to say, "You're pretty brave today, Elki. I appreciate your help. But one thing I want you to do for me, you got to make sure that all the people in this area you got to make it sound like it's just a real important thing. Do it for me. Make sure people don't lose those blankets. They got to keep up that little tradition that they've got, even though they don't know what's behind it. You got to spread the word, make sure that people stay on top of this. Don't let anybody else lose that blanket. You've seen what can happen. So as you get older, make sure that tradition isn't forgotten. All right, can you do that for me?"
I'll try.
All right, my friend. I'm going to get the toy that I took out of his room.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it back to him. I'm going to say, these are the kind of things that you need to hang on to. You got to hang on to those things from childhood because you never know when they might come back and be something that you need. I'm going to stand up, turn to the 4 workers who came out of the barn with us. Are they still...
They're currently arguing with some of their co-workers about what is real and what is fake.
To give the 4 guys from the barn some credibility in front of their co-workers, I'm going to walk over and just more or less interpose myself between the 2 groups and say, "You guys are some of the bravest people I've ever met. I appreciate your help. We might not have been able to do this without you. You saved a child today. You need to be proud of yourselves."
You sure about that, big man?
"Yeah, I'm sure." And I'm just going to step back without any further discussion, touch my badge, and ping out.
The last thing that Sloan sees is the spears, shields, and armor they were conjured vanishing with Ajax's departure. And as they do so, one of the other workers says, How did you do that? And where'd you get those from?" And one of them says, "As we were trying to say, we've had a long night." And on that note, we will end the mission.
I do want to briefly question whether they had any reaction to the 3 strangers just teleporting away.
Yeah.
Suddenly no longer there.
Absolutely. They certainly will have a lot of arguing to do, though Pigeon wasn't in the spotlight when he vanished to the same
That's
degree,
true.
because they had been bickering at the time. All right, friends. Before anything else, since I always forget this, mission name. What should we call this one?
I'm half tempted to suggest Tomash's play on friend in need of sleep.
A little cute. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I think just the Bairnsnag or Elki and the Bairnsnag would be good ones.
You know what? I actually agree that symbol is better here. Let's just do Elki and the Bairnsnag.
I think I agree too.
I like it.
Beautiful. Now, thank you guys so much. That was fantastic. Let's do a brief review.
Thank you.
First of all, do you guys have any questions for me about calls that I made, plot elements, things like that?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. I thought that was great.
No, I've got nothing.
Good. I'm glad it was. That's the best thing I can hear at this stage because it means that I didn't make any questionable calls. Yeah, Jallorn,
No, I mean,
Got thoughts, but no questions. No,
Sure.
I think there's cool stuff that'd be fun to discuss about like the nature of the Bairnsnag, but it's not worth interrogating right now.
Jim, what were you saying just there?
no, nothing. I was just going to say that as usual, everything was really well described.
Thank you.
One of the things that I always love about these is you have an attention to just the surrounding detail that gives it a really nice ambiance. I mean, I could see where we were out on those fields with the wind blowing and the sounds that were occurring. It was excellently described. And so thanks for that, because that made the entire adventure that much more fun. It was really good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would say that especially when you are going for creepy missions, especially like true horror. I would not call this true horror, but it came close. Ambiance is way more important. And Enclave in general, ambiance is important, but for missions where you're trying to set a tone like that, it's especially important. Yeah, sorry.
I sort of feel like if I'd been playing someone other than Pigeon, we would have gotten closer to true horror.
Yes, indeed. That's absolutely true.
I think that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for saying so, Jim. Something I wanted to mention: there were two calls that I had that I wanted to brief. Actually, really only one that I wanted to bring up, which is it's very, very rare that I directly prompt someone with something like the trick shot thing that I said to you. But in that particular case, I don't think it would have worked without that trick shot, and it was too cool to waste. So I think that in my eyes, I made a mistake by prompting it so directly. I think I could have led you to it more gently. But you've done so much other good work in that action that I was like, fuck, I don't think I could let it happen without the extra justification for getting the coin through the thin slits, which I couldn't see any other way to do. So that was, I would call that my biggest mistake on the mission, was that one call.
I have to admit that I was a bit surprised, because I've never, aside from my very first mission, I haven't seen you do that. And when you said that, it was like, uh-oh. But it was almost at the same time kind of I better figure out a way to use this, because that was one of the biggest gimmies I've had in a long time. Thank you. Thank you for it.
Part of the reason I gave you that gimme is I don't think you've ever trick shotted anything besides a bullet before. And
I was in waters that I wasn't used to doing. I will freely admit that.
That was the thing that made me willing to do it, because that is an example of big energy work, where you take an ability. You did a couple of those on this mission, which was really fun to see, where you take an ability and you twist it to make it work different from how it is supposed to work. And since you haven't done a lot of that before, especially with trick shot, I felt more comfortable doing with it, but I still think I could have done it more elegantly. So I'd say that was my biggest mistake. That said, let's quickly go through characters. First of all, Pigeon. I'm very glad I got to host for Pigeon in a proper Bogatyr setting. I designed this mission such that he would be able to really pull out the Bogatyr's kit, and I think he did a beautiful job of that. The ending Friend in Need was fascinating. I think there might have been a cleaner way of doing it, but it got kind of where it needed to go, because obviously trading blows kind of demoralizes a target, so to speak, for want of a better term, making them frustrated and flustered. But for this thing, it brought out its childish nature. And so by the time that you use that, I was like, well, yeah, it would probably want to fucking nap at this point. So sure, I kind of dig it, right? So even that kind of dubious one I thought was still pretty cool. And your Samasek and your trading blows were both mwah. The reason I had it split in half is because when I was designing the mission, I realized that Pigeon would literally solo the mission if he could capture the whole thing at once. So I was like, I need to make sure he can't just lock it into a duel the entire time by himself. And as you can imagine, if you hadn't split it in half, it would have been a much scarier threat. Possibly to the point where it could have ended trading blows early and really, really hurt Pigeon or killed him even. So overall, brilliant. Really awesome use of the Bogatyr's kit. Really great social play with Elki. And really great catch as a player that your job was to lighten the tone of the mission. That was 100% correct, and I thought that you did beautifully with that. Your trading blows insult battery was spectacular, but I think that the height of the mission for you was your Samasek rhyme. I thought that was fantastic when you sent it.
That was started really good. I started working on that about 20 minutes before I used it.
Good.
I was absolutely like, oh, we're facing a blanket monster. Knives. Dancing knives. Come on.
Yeah, that was marvelous. Next up.
I also.
Oh yeah.
I also want to respond to picking up that Pigeon was supposed to lighten the mood. I'm not sure that I picked up that was your intention so much as you picked up that is just part of what Pigeon is as a character.
Oh, he needs it for sure. But on the last mission I hosted for him, he was actually kind of subdued. So
Yes.
I felt I wanted to make sure that you didn't feel like you needed to play subdued twice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even though this is like a subdued setting, creepy setting, it was actually I was begging for you to bring lightness to it. You know. Next up, Ajax. First of all, Alexander, thank you so much for playing. Awesome first mission. You took to the
thank
system
you.
very easily.
It was a lot of fun. It was really a great time.
Marvelous, yeah. He is very much a Thaney Thane, but you still showed a lot of great understanding of the kit when you were using it. You did a great job holding off on the banner conjure. That's very tempting to pull early. Your 2 arms was pretty much textbook. Nicely done there. Great use of the mantle as well. That authority was an essential part of my design for the mission because I was like, well, he's got to have a freaking terrified child. Like, you need someone to... Between Pigeon, Sloan being, like, calm, right? And then you having the mantle, I was hoping you'd be able to keep that in check. But not only that, you actually managed to bring in the workers pretty neatly as well, which was very, very well done.
Thanks. That was the goal.
As you can see, I made sure that the Bairnsnag could split in 2. And the fact that your group ended up splitting into 4 was the way that you were able to get around it and, like, outmaneuver it. And that was, I would say that was entirely on Ajax, like getting the group that able to subdivide, right? So that was really, really well done.
Nice.
I thought that your combat was nice and like kept in check. You didn't just frickin' Leroy Jenkins in there, which was a very bad thing to do with this thing. But using your longer weapon to cut, it was bingo, like bang on the money what you were supposed to be doing there. Really nicely done. I'm sure there was other ways to do it, but that was what I was kind of hoping, and I thought you did well with that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so overall, marvelous. Also, actually, side note, you creeping around a house trying to be stealthy at the beginning of the mission might have been my favorite thing because so many people would have just been like, yeah, I walk. You're a freaking thing, like, thonk, 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 right? So it really, like, it showed your awareness as a player that you were able to pick up on that and reel it in immediately.
Oh, thanks. No, I mean, as soon as you said that, as soon as you said where we're going to be, like, dropping in, essentially, it's like, oh, God, this is not the circumstance where this guy is meant to be. But I'm glad that we were able to maneuver around that properly.
Yep.
That was fun.
And I designed it that way deliberately because I wanted to kind of test your awareness as a player because it would help me figure out what other like obstacles I could present to you down the line better.
Sure.
Right? Whenever you host for someone new, a lot of it is just feeling them out and figuring out what they play like and what they tend to go for and do.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Really fun hosting for you, man. Nicely done.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was a great time.
Excellent. I'll ask for a few more details in a moment. But lastly, Sloan. I love hosting for Sloan. I've done so many times. This was, I'd say, kind of a completely new environment for him because I don't think I've done horror with him before. And I feel like for Sloan, more than any other character on this mission, this was a horror mission.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Your initial investigation in the house was brilliantly done. Your way of understanding that I was trying to play tricks on you was brilliantly done and recentering yourself. Crisp. Very, very nice. Your realizing the tree thing was great. And trying to like pick it. You were looking for those stillnesses and those breaks in the pattern. Really, really smart play. Obviously, when you had to start shooting, you quickly realized that I had designed this enemy such that it couldn't be taken down nearly as easily by bullets, because otherwise you could just trivialize the mission. But you were still able to impact it pretty substantially. And also, your attacks were a big part of the reason that it ended up having to split, which was a good thing. Because as a single piece, it would have killed Pigeon. It would have killed Pigeon pretty much without question, I would say. So that was brilliant. I think the high point for me was you re-establishing a standoff. That was great. Like the scene that you conjured, the way that you use the term, I think you used re-establish or something like that, just made so much sense. And I'll be honest, I don't think I have ever had someone do that before, or try even. For that ability standoff. And I thought it was really, really clean because there are so many times that would just, no way, you're not reestablishing a standoff. But given that you'd only ripped off some fabric rather than shooting a gun, it just was way more plausible. So I thought that was a great read of the situation, really great read of the situation. And as per usual, you brought the intensity of the character and his proclivities to play very, very well. I completely bought that he profoundly cared about what was going on. So overall, a marvelous showing for Sloan. I always love the character, but this was definitely a high one for him.
Thank you.
Alexander, I would love to hear some of your thoughts about Enclave. We have discussed it before, but now that you've played, what do you think? How has your mind been changed? What do you want to see more of? That sort of thing.
I mean, I liked it a lot. I think that coming into it, you know, I mean, we've talked in pretty great length about kind of just how the game functions overall, but talking about it and actually experiencing it, I think are two very, very different things.
Yeah.
And coming into today, I wasn't exactly sure how the Diceless aspect would manifest itself, being pretty much universally a Dungeons and Dragons player, but I thought it was a lot of fun. I think that the way that it's structured allows more for the story to shine through a lot of the time. It's more of a you're getting through that narrative, and I think that, especially given that you came up with this in like 3.5 minutes at the beginning of the session, that's really cool. I mean, that's impressive. So kudos to you for, you know, being able to do that as quickly as you did. But the way that you've structured the game, again, it really just allows the characters to kind of live through that narrative and allow that to be more of the focal point than what page, you know, is the chart for combat versus the level 3 whatever. Like, I think that there are merits to both, but this just allows us to, this is where we are, this is the environment we're in, we're going to experience that more than anything. And I really love that aspect of it. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Well, I really appreciate it. The game lends itself very well to being able to generate missions very quickly and easily once you start getting kind of used to how it produces. Jallorn has conduited before, and as a conduit for Enclave versus a host in D&D, how have you found the elements of hosting the Diceless side and doing quick design compared to when you do it in D&D, for example, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot?
No, you kidding me? I was going to talk about that anyway. Give me a spotlight for it. I'm even happier.
Keep talking. 1 second.
Absolutely. So I would say there's two main comparisons I want to draw. One is a similarity between running D&D and running Enclave, and one is a difference. The similarity is that a lot of the time in D&D, like, you're kind of having to go, okay, well, how difficult is that? So that's about this difficult. Okay, go roll it, right? Enclave sort of has that same function. It's just the default assumption of how you react to any particular thing somebody's trying to do is you're just kind of like, okay, that's what you're trying to do. It's about this hard. You have this ability to do it. It's gonna cost you this much. You get a partial success or complete, but it still feels very similar. It's just that you don't have to worry about anchoring numbers. Mm-hmm. Which, as someone who is still trying to learn the lesson that it's almost more important that you make your decisions, you commit to your decisions to make them right than that you worry that you're making the right decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that Enclave just takes a lot of that stress out of that part. And then the difference I want to draw is the fact that I think D&D, as much as I love the feeling of like, oh, there's a system to solve and there's tactics and I can leverage these mechanics, as someone playing the game, that's fantastic and I love it. As someone running the game, it destroys my pacing. And the biggest advantage that I feel like Enclave has as a system for the conduit versus D&D for the DM is that pacing is so much better in Enclave because you don't have to look things up. Like you said, you don't have to, okay, what are the stats on this monster? Okay, it took how much damage? Okay, whose turn is it? Okay, what are you doing? Like, it's just, hey, go, do the thing. Okay, great. Go, do the thing, you know? The pacing is absolutely a strength of Enclave.
Yep. I would say, having now researched a bunch of other systems, that does seem to be one of our biggest advantages. Because we started this pretty much exactly 3 hours ago. The entire session ended up being under 3 hours because we blabbed for a bit now at this point. And that's pretty fantastic for a very complete story that you guys all contributed very, very substantially to. And I'll even say, my intro was a little slow. In retrospect, I should have sped it up, right? So, like, there's all sorts of cool little incremental room for improvement that you can make.
I do also want to add, though, that there is a certain kind of DM for which they're able to have all of those things prepped in a way that I struggle with. So it's also worth mentioning, this is a case of Enclave is better specifically for me because I am good at the improv. I'm just bad at putting numbers to the improv.
Any other thoughts from you, Jim? Both from what you've seen Alexander and Jallorn discussed here, but also what how your attitude has evolved over the sessions, especially now after this one. If anything new has come across.
Not really. I mean, way back when you when we first started talking about your Kickstarter back in the day, and you gave me a copy of Enclave for review. I want to say that my comment about it was that we had been working toward this style of play, well, in my case, for the past 45 years. And, we long ago reached, like Alexander and I think we talked about it on the interview even, we'll go through evenings where we do not pick up dice at all because we are so much more narrative based and narrative driven that, some people might even say, well, I don't even think you guys played Dungeons and Dragons. Well, we do, but it's our own brand of Dungeons and Dragons. I guess the point that I'm getting to, though, is that's what I'm really enjoying about Enclave, is that the narrative takes the front seat. And I like the fact, like Jallorn was saying, I like the fact that there is not that intermittent slowdown of the narrative by having to refer to tables, by having to roll dice, by having to say, oh, wait a minute, I think on page 34 it says this. That's what I love about this style of game and Enclave in particular, is that the narrative is, again, a narrative is front and center. It is the driving force behind it, and that's something that I think all RPG systems should be striving toward. A lot of them don't, however, but I think that is like the golden rule that everybody should be after. And Enclave gets there. That's why I look forward to playing these games so much, because I know that in 3 hours we're going to have one heck of a narrative ride, and I'm not going to have to worry about how are we coming up with this or where's he doing that, and I can't presuppose and try and pick your brain based on the existence of gaming materials beyond a very small point. It's a freeing experience, I guess I should say, if you understand what I'm saying. It's a freeing experience as far as doing an RPG to play Enclave.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you saying so, and I appreciate hearing all of you guys give your thoughts on this. Once again, thank you so much for being part of the mission today. Normally I would review the focus words, but I think they are super frickin' obvious, so we don't have to worry about that. For those who didn't hear earlier, we had the focus words Eerie, Heart of a Child, and Dark. I'm just saying. I don't think we need to leave it more than that. Brilliantly done. It was awesome playing with you guys. I very much look forward to having you on missions with me in future on actual plays. Similar, in November, we have Enclave Day coming up on November the 2nd. I'll be opening up the sign-ins for that soon. And participating in Enclave Day, for those of you who have a copy of the game, which you three do, you will get a new class for free, which we release periodically. And we have, I think, 6 to choose from at this point. So if you wanted to pick up the Bogatyr yourself or one of the many other offerings we have, we would love to have you be part of the event if you happen to have time. But for now, let us do our sign-offs in the same order we signed on. Alexander, Jallorn, Jim, fire away with your sign-off.
Thank you all so much. I don't have much to say. This was a lot of fun. Again, I'm Alexander. Check out the Old Warlock YouTube channel. But thank you so much to Robbie for having us today. It really was a great time. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing it again and trying out some of the other classes. So thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Jallorn, and of course, thank you, Jim.
Crisp.
I have been Jallorn, aka Elliot, playing Pigeon, and it is always a great time anytime Robbie runs a game. And I also would like to just say briefly to Jim that the way you ended the mission, compliments I would like to give you in a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
And
all your stage.
Yeah, I mean, this is great as usual. Alexander, it was fun to watch you step into this game like almost in a way like you'd been playing it for a long time. That was fun to see. Jallorn, I really enjoyed a lot of the things that you brought to the game today. I liked finding out more about the Bogatyr, but some of the things that you brought some of the trappings that you brought with it, especially some of the wordsmithing that you put together, I absolutely loved. So, that anytime that someone manages to do that as a character, for me, that's really cool because it immerses me that much further into the story. So thank you very much for doing that, because it made what Robbie always makes a great thing. What you did made it just that much better. So thanks again for doing that. Aside from that, Robbie, great as always. I look forward to doing this again.
Perfect. As do I. And to all those of you who are watching, as always, my name is Robbie Howell. And ciao for now.